I stared at my phone screen, watching the 3 dots disappear and reappear in our family group chat. My fingers trembled as I typed, "My surgery's on the 15th, just need someone to drive me home." The response came instantly. My sister Ashley wrote, "LOL, you actually thought we'd miss Cabo for that." Mom added, "Don't guilt us, this trip's been planned for months." I typed back, "My mistake," and set my phone down. They didn't even ask what kind of surgery it was. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been standing at the front of our quarterly review meeting, laser pointer in hand, when the PowerPoint slides on the screen started swimming before my eyes. The revenue projections I'd spent 2 weeks preparing suddenly doubled, then tripled the numbers, overlapping in ways that made no sense. I gripped the edge of the mahogany conference table, hoping nobody noticed my knuckles turning white. "Caitlin, are you all right?" Grace, my assistant manager, had risen halfway from her seat, concern etched across her face. "Just a migraine." I'd managed, though the pain behind my eyes felt different from any headache I'd experienced before. "Let's take a quick break." In the executive bathroom, I'd splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. 32 years old, senior financial analyst at a Fortune 500 company, and something was terribly wrong. The fluorescent lights seemed to pulse and flicker, though I knew they were steady. That afternoon, I'd driven myself to urgent care, then to the emergency room when the doctor there took one look at my dilated pupils and made a phone call. By evening, I was sliding into an MRI machine, the rhythmic banging drowning out my racing thoughts. Dr. Matthews had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd pulled up the scan results on his computer screen, pointing to a small mass near my optic nerve. "It's a meningioma," he'd explained, his voice gentle but direct. "Benign but growing. We need to remove it before it causes permanent damage to your vision." Benign, such a reassuring word, yet it didn't stop my hands from shaking as I signed the surgical consent forms. "Do you have family who can support you through this?" the nurse had asked, preparing my paperwork. "Of course," I'd replied automatically, "because that's what you say. That's what everyone assumes." Now, 3 weeks later, I scrolled through our family group chat, seeing their excitement building for their Cabo trip. Mom had posted a countdown widget 2 months ago, 60 days until Paradise. Ashley shared photos of the resort, the infinity pool overlooking the ocean, the swim-up bar where she planned to spend most afternoons. Tyler, my younger brother, sent links to deep-sea fishing excursions. I'd watched their plans develop, saying nothing about my diagnosis. Part of me wanted to protect them from worry. Another part, a smaller voice I tried to ignore, wondered if they'd even care. The surgery date Dr. Matthews offered happened to fall during their trip. "We could push it back 2 weeks, he'd suggested, but I'd seen the concern in his eyes. The tumor was pressing more each day. My vision episodes were becoming frequent. "No, the 15th is fine." I told him, thinking surely one of them would offer to delay their vacation by just 1 day, just long enough to drive me home. Grace had noticed my increasing struggles at work. She'd covered for me during presentations, quietly adjusted my computer screen when I squinted at spreadsheets, suggested we move meetings to rooms with softer lighting. "Whatever's going on, I'm here," she'd offered last week. I'd almost told her then. Almost admitted that I'd be having brain surgery while my entire family sipped margaritas on a beach. But admitting it out loud would make it real, would confirm what I'd always suspected, but never wanted to acknowledge. Looking at their response now, Ashley's LOL felt like a slap. Had she really laughed out loud? The thought of me needing them, genuinely amusing Mom's follow-up about not guilting them, stung worse. I hadn't mentioned the word surgery to provoke guilt. I'd simply stated a fact and made a simple request. My mistake indeed. I pulled up the surgery center's website and booked a medical transport. $300 for a ride home. A stranger would pick me up after brain surgery because my family couldn't miss their vacation. I filled out the form listing Grace as my emergency contact. At least someone would answer if the hospital called. The group chat continued buzzing. Ashley posted a photo of her new bikini. Mom shared the restaurant reservations she'd made. Tyler sent a meme about airport security. Not one of them asked a follow-up question about my surgery. I closed the chat and opened my work calendar. 3 days of sick leave for the surgery and initial recovery. I'd need to prepare detailed handover notes for Grace, ensure all my projects were covered. Always the responsible one, even now. Even with a tumor growing behind my eye, pressing on the nerve that let me see the world clearly. Though perhaps my vision problems weren't all physical. Maybe the tumor was just revealing what had always been blurry about my family's priorities. My phone buzzed. A text from Ashley private outside the group chat. My heart lifted for a moment. Maybe she'd reconsidered. Maybe she wanted details about the surgery without embarrassing herself in front of Mom and Tyler. "Can you water my plants while we're gone? The neighbor I asked just bailed. I'll leave a key under the mat." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "I'll be recovering from surgery. Remember?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Oh, right, NVM, I'll ask someone else." No concern, no questions, just mild inconvenience that I couldn't perform my usual role of solving everyone's problems. I set my phone aside and pulled out my laptop to start writing those handover notes. At least at work, people noticed when I wasn't there. At least somewhere I mattered enough to plan around. The tumor pulsed behind my eye, a dull ache that had become my constant companion. In 12 days, a surgeon would carefully remove it, restore my vision, give me back clarity. I wondered if he could remove the other thing that had been growing for years, the painful mass of resentment and disappointment lodged somewhere near my heart. But that wasn't his specialty. That surgery I'd have to perform myself. The next morning, I woke with a mission. If I was going to spend my recovery alone, I needed to get my affairs in order. I pulled out the filing cabinet in my home office, searching for my insurance documents. My fingers walked through neatly labeled folders until they landed on one that made me pause. Family Medical. I hadn't opened this folder in years, but I knew what it contained. Slowly, I pulled it out and spread its contents across my desk. The papers told a story I'd almost let myself forget, each document a chapter in a book titled Giving Until It Hurts. The first stack, Mom's cancer treatment from 5 years ago. Itemized bills from Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Chemotherapy sessions at $2,000 each. Radiation treatments. Surgical consultations. The total at the bottom of one statement made me catch my breath. $47,000. Insurance had covered some. But the gaps, the deductibles, the experimental treatments, insurance wouldn't touch. Those bills all bore my signature, my credit card numbers, my checking account information. I remembered those days vividly, racing from my office to the treatment center, holding Mom's hand while poison dripped into her veins, fighting the cancer but ravaging everything else. Ashley had been too emotional to handle the hospital visits. Tyler was swamped at work. So it fell to me, as things always did. Beneath Mom's papers, I found Dad's cardiac rehabilitation documentation. 6 months of appointments after his first heart attack, physical therapy, medication management, dietary consultations. I'd driven him to every single appointment, rearranged my schedule, taken calls from his doctors. The sticky note in my handwriting was still attached, Tuesday, Thursday, 10 a.m., a Just Peterson meeting. Dad had passed 2 years ago from his second heart attack. It happened fast, no time for rehabilitation or treatment plans. Just a phone call at 3 in the morning and a world that shifted off its axis. Even then, I'd been the one to handle everything. Funeral arrangements, estate paperwork, comforting Mom while Ashley flew in 2 days late and Tyler asked about his inheritance before the burial. I dug deeper into the folder. Ashley's fertility treatments jumped out next. 3 rounds of IVF at $15,000 each. "Please, Caitlin," she'd sobbed over the phone. "Brad's insurance doesn't cover it, and we've already spent our savings on the first attempt." I'd liquidated my retirement account, sent the check without hesitation because that's what family does. Now Ashley had 3 beautiful children who called me Aunt Katie, though I usually only saw them in Christmas card photos. At the bottom of the pile, a thicker folder that made my stomach clench. Tyler's gambling debts. $30,000 paid to various creditors to save him from bankruptcy, to keep his house from foreclosure. He'd promised to pay me back, swore he'd get help. That was 4 years ago. Last I heard, he'd been promoted at his firm, bought a new truck, taken his girlfriend to Vegas. The irony of that last part wasn't lost on me. I picked up my phone and scrolled to my cousin Sarah's number. She lived in Portland now, had built a life 3,000 miles away from our family drama. Her voice was groggy when she answered, the time difference meaning I'd caught her just waking up. "Sorry for calling so early," I began, but she cut me off. "Caitlin, what's wrong? You never call this early unless someone's in the hospital." The accuracy of that statement hit hard. Actually, I will be. In the hospital, I mean. Brain surgery on the 15th. Silence. Then, oh my God, how bad. What can I do? Do you need me to fly out? Tears pricked my eyes. The first person to offer help, and it was someone I talked to maybe twice a year. It's benign. I'll be okay. I was going through old papers and found all this stuff from when Mom was sick. Do you remember when I turned down that job in Seattle? The Amazon position. Of course I remember. 6 figures, stock options, the whole package. We were all shocked when you said no. Mom had just been diagnosed. Someone needed to be here. Sarah's exhale was long and heavy. And of course, that someone was you. It's always you, isn't it? A pause. Caitlin, can I ask you something? And I need you to really think about the answer. Okay. When was the last time any of them did something just for you? Not because they needed something in return, not as a thank you for something you did first, just for you. I stared at the papers spread before me, evidence of decades of one-way generosity. My mind searched for an answer, rifling through memories like files in a cabinet. Birthday dinners where I'd paid the check, Christmas gifts that were clearly afterthoughts, the promotion party they'd forgotten to attend. I can't remember, I admitted quietly. That's what I thought. Sarah's voice carried a mix of sadness and frustration. You know what Mom says about you? She calls you the family ATM. Pop in your card, get what you need, walk away until next time. Sarah. What it's true, and before you defend them, ask yourself why I moved across the country the second I graduated college, why Marcus joined the Peace Corps and never came back, why everyone who can get away from that dysfunction does except you. My phone buzzed with a notification, the group chat. I put Sarah on speaker to check it. Ashley had posted her detailed packing list asking who had recommendations for reef-safe sunscreen. Mom had responded with 3 heart emojis and a reminder to bring aloe vera just in case anyone burns. Tyler had sent a gif of someone doing a cannonball into a pool. They're going to Cabo, I told Sarah. During my surgery, I asked if someone could drive me home after and they laughed. They what? Ashley literally wrote LOL, like the idea of missing their vacation to help me was genuinely funny. Please tell me you're not still planning to water her plants. A surprised laugh escaped me, the first genuine one in weeks. She already asked. I told her I'd be recovering. Good. Small steps. Sarah's tone shifted, became more serious. Caitlin, I know you don't want to hear this, but maybe this is a blessing. Maybe this surgery is about more than removing a tumor. Maybe it's about finally seeing clearly who deserves to be in your life. After we hung up, I sat surrounded by the financial evidence of my role in the family, the caregiver, the problem solver, the one who never said no. Each receipt and invoice represented a piece of myself I'd given away expecting nothing in return, because that's what good daughters, good sisters do. But Sarah was right. My cousins had seen what I'd been blind to. They'd protected themselves by leaving. I'd stayed thinking proximity meant love, that being needed meant being valued. The tumor behind my eye had blurred my vision, but maybe the real impairment had been there all along. I gathered the papers, returning them to their folder. In 10 days, Dr. Matthews would remove the growth that threatened my eyesight, the growth that had been stealing my clarity one day at a time. I wondered if recovering from surgery might give me the distance I needed to address the other thing that had been slowly robbing me of perspective. My laptop chimed with an email from work. Grace sending a funny meme about Excel spreadsheets with a note, "Thought you could use a laugh." Also, I've cleared my calendar for the 15th through 17th, just in case you need anything. Just in case I need anything. From someone I'd worked with for 2 years, not someone I'd shared DNA with for 3 decades. I looked back at the family group chat now discussing whether the resort's pool bars accepted cash or were card only. Not one message asking about my surgery type, the risks, the recovery time. Nothing. I closed the chat and opened a new document on my laptop. At the top, I typed, "Post-surgery recovery plan." If my family had taught me anything, it was how to take care of things myself. The only difference now was that the person I'd be taking care of would finally be me. 3 days before surgery, I sat in my living room with a checklist that would make a wedding planner envious. Every detail of my solo recovery had been meticulously arranged. The medical transport was confirmed for pickup at 11:30 on surgery day. The home health aide Margaret would arrive at 8 the next morning for 48 hours of post-operative care. I'd stocked my refrigerator with soft foods-filled prescriptions, in advance set up a recovery station in my bedroom with everything within arm's reach. I was reviewing Margaret's credentials when my laptop chimed with an email notification. The sender made me frown Ashley Morrison Chen. Strange Ashley never emailed me, preferring texts for plant watering requests and group chat messages for everything else. I clicked open the message and immediately wished I hadn't. The email thread was extensive, dating back 3 months. Ashley had forwarded it to me by mistake, clearly meaning to send it to her husband Brad. The original recipients were Mom Tyler and someone named Jonathan Fitzgerald Esquire, an attorney. My hands grew cold as I read from the beginning. As we discussed in our last meeting, the lawyer had written, "Redistributing your father's remaining assets requires careful consideration of all beneficiaries. However, if Caitlin has formally declined her inheritance, share that simplifies matters considerably." Mom's response made my stomach churn. She insisted I keep everything after Robert passed, said she didn't need it, that I should be comfortable. We have it in writing. Tyler had chimed in. Good, someone without kids doesn't need a family trust anyway. What's she gonna do? Leave it to her cats? She doesn't have cats, Ashley had corrected. She doesn't have anything except that job she's married to. Besides, we have actual families to think about. College funds, mortgages, real expenses. The thread continued with discussions of property valuations, investment accounts I didn't even know existed, and a timeline for restructuring that coincidentally aligned with Mom reaching an age where she could access certain retirement funds without penalty. But the worst part came near the end in an exchange from just last week. Tyler thinks she suspects anything. Mom Caitlin. She's too busy playing Mother Teresa at work to notice. Did you know she volunteers at the hospital on Sundays, like she doesn't already give enough away for free? Ashley. LOL, right, remember when she wanted to go to the Grand Canyon for that meditation retreat or whatever we scheduled Cabo the same week. She'll never figure out it was on purpose. Tyler, $20, says she offers to drive us to the airport. Ashley, you're on. I bet she'll be too busy with some work crisis she invented to seem important. My vision blurred, and for once, it wasn't the tumor. They'd known about my vacation request. They'd deliberately scheduled their trip to conflict with it. The cruelty was intentional, calculated, discussed, and laughed about behind my back. I forced myself to read the final exchange dated just yesterday. Brad Ashley's husband. Ash, you forwarded this whole thread to Caitlin by mistake. She's going to see everything. Ashley, what? Oh God. Okay, don't panic. She probably won't even open it. She never checks personal email. And if she does, I'll just say it was a joke or taken out of context. Caitlin always believes the best in people. It's literally her biggest weakness. I sat back, laptop trembling on my knees. My biggest weakness. Believing the best in people. Trusting my family. The tumor behind my eye throbbed, but the pain in my chest was worse. Every sacrifice, every check written, every opportunity declined to stay close to them. It had all been a joke to them. ATM was too kind a nickname. I was just a resource to be exploited, too naive to protect myself. My phone rang. Ashley's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message. "Hey, sis. Just wanted to check in about those plants. I know you said you're having surgery or whatever, but maybe you could swing by before or after. They just need water twice a week. Thanks, love you." Love you. The words felt like acid now. I deleted the voicemail and returned to my preparation. The medical transport, the health aid, the solo recovery. It all made perfect sense now. I wasn't alone because of circumstances. I was alone because my family had chosen to leave me that way, had actively orchestrated it while planning to take everything my father had wanted to leave me. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Grace's number. "Hey," I said when she answered. "I know this is a huge ask, but would you mind being my emergency contact for the surgery? The person I listed just informed me they'll be unavailable." "Of course," Grace replied without hesitation. "Do you need me to be there? I can rearrange my Thursday meetings." "No, that's okay. The doctor says I'll be unconscious for hours, then too groggy to know anyone's there. But thank you." "Caitlin." Her voice carried a weight of understanding. "I'll be there anyway. Nobody should wake up from brain surgery alone." After we hung up, I made one more call. Catherine Reeves was a lawyer I'd met through work, sharp and protective of her clients. "I need to review some inheritance documents," I told her secretary. "Specifically, I need to understand what happens when someone declines an inheritance under emotional duress while grieving. Can she see me tomorrow?" The appointment was set for 2 o'clock. I gathered the email printouts, adding them to a new folder I labeled Evidence. If my family wanted to treat me like a naive fool, they were about to learn that believing the best in people didn't make me stupid. It had just made me blind. But in 3 days, the tumor would be gone. My vision would be clear. And maybe finally I'd see my family for exactly what they were. I spent the rest of the evening organizing documents, bank statements showing every payment I'd made for them, text messages asking for money, screenshots of the group chat where they'd mocked my vacation plans, the forwarded email thread now printed and highlighted. Catherine would have everything she needed. My phone buzzed constantly, Ashley trying to call, Mom sending texts about bringing shells back from Cabo, Tyler sharing a countdown. 2 days until paradise. I silenced it all and went back to my checklist. At the bottom, I added one more item: start over. After the surgery, after recovery, after dealing with whatever legal battles lay ahead, I would need to rebuild. Not just my health, but my entire life. The family I'd built it around had been a mirage, a one-way street disguised as a circle of love. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to preserve my family, I'd enabled their worst behaviors. In believing the best, I'd allowed them to be their worst. Dr. Matthews would remove the tumor that impaired my vision, but I would have to remove the emotional cataracts that had kept me from seeing the truth for 32 years. Surgery in 3 days. A new life shortly after. It terrified me more than the brain tumor ever had. The alarm never had a chance to ring. I'd been awake since 3, staring at the ceiling, running through everything one more time. Surgery at 8, medical transport at 5:30. Nothing to eat or drink after midnight. Simple instructions for a complicated day. At 5, as I was double-checking my hospital bag, my phone chimed. A text from an unknown number. "I know about your surgery. Check your porch." My security system showed no one outside, but there on the welcome mat sat a small wicker basket. I retrieved it cautiously, bringing it into the light of my kitchen. Inside, lavender aromatherapy oil, a playlist titled Peaceful Healing. On a USB drive, organic lip balm, fuzzy socks with Brave, written on the soles, and a handwritten note on cream cardstock. "You're braver than you know, stronger than you believe. Someone is thinking of you today. A friend who understands." No signature, no identifying marks. The handwriting was unfamiliar, careful cursive that could have belonged to anyone. I held the note, reading it 3 more times. Someone knew. Someone cared enough to leave comfort for a stranger facing surgery alone. I tucked the items into my hospital bag, keeping the note in my pocket, a talisman from an anonymous guardian angel. The medical transport arrived precisely at 5:30. The driver, an older gentleman named Carl, helped me into the van with practiced kindness. "Northwestern Memorial," he confirmed. "Big day, huh?" "Brain surgery," I said, surprising myself with the admission. "Well then, let's get you there safe and sound. My daughter had brain surgery last year. Scariest thing we ever went through, but look at her now, training for a marathon." He chatted gently during the drive, sharing stories about his daughter's recovery, filling the silence I hadn't realized I'd been dreading. As we pulled up to the surgical entrance, he patted my hand. "You got anyone waiting for you?" "They're running late," I lied smoothly. "Well, you take care now. Dr. Matthews right, he's the best. Fix my daughter right up." Inside, the pre-op routine began. Forms to sign, wristbands to confirm, IV lines to insert. I changed into the hospital gown, folded my clothes neatly, placed my phone on top. 6:45. Might as well check one last time. The group chat had been active all night. Ashley posted a sunrise photo from the plane. Mexico-bound mimosas at 30,000 feet. Mom added prayer hands and a heart emoji, nothing else. Tyler shared a selfie with his girlfriend, both wearing matching Cabo or bust t-shirts. I typed one message, "Heading to surgery now, send." The response was immediate. Ashley's beach sunrise photo from earlier, she was reposting it. "Missing you, wish you were here." Mom added more prayer hands. That was it. No questions, no concern, no last-minute change of heart. Caitlin Morrison. A nurse in purple scrubs smiled warmly. "I'm Patricia. I'll be with you through prep. How are you feeling?" "Ready?" I said, placing my phone in the bag. "Good. Any family we should update during the procedure." "They're traveling. My emergency contact is Grace Chen. She's running late." Another lie, but easier than the truth. Patricia's expression softened with understanding. "Well, we'll take excellent care of you. Dr. Matthews is reviewing your scans now. The anesthesiologist will be in shortly to go over everything." She bustled around, adjusting my IV checking monitors, her movements efficient but gentle. First brain surgery. I had my appendix out in college." "Well, this one's easier. You'll sleep right through it. Wake up with a smaller headache than you probably have now from that tumor." Dr. Matthews arrived at 7:30, marked my forehead with a purple pen, reviewed the procedure once more. The tumor was accessible, shouldn't require disturbing much tissue. 4 to 6 hours depending on what they found. Risks included vision changes, possible speech impacts, typical surgical complications. I signed the final consent. "Any last questions?" he asked. "The recovery, I've arranged home health care. That's sufficient." His brow furrowed slightly. "For the first few days, yes, but you'll want family or friends checking in. Brain surgery can be disorienting. Having familiar faces helps." "Of course, they're just delayed. Travel complications." The lie came so easily now, a protective shield against pity or judgment. The anesthesiologist arrived next, a cheerful woman who explained the process while injecting something into my IV that made the edges of everything soften. "Count backward from 10 when you're ready," she said. Patricia squeezed my hand. "I'll be here when you wake up." I thought of the anonymous note in my pocket. Someone thinking of me. Grace probably already in the waiting room despite my protests. Carl the driver telling his daughter about the brave woman he'd driven that morning. 10. I began thinking of the tumor that would soon be gone. 9. For the vision that would clear. 8. For the family that had chosen Cabo over caring. 7. For the truth I'd finally seen. 6. For the lawyer who'd help me reclaim what was mine. 5. For the new life waiting after recovery. 4. For Grace and Patricia and strangers who showed more kindness than blood. 3. For the strength I'd found in solitude. 2. For the clarity that comes from cutting away what poisons you. 1. I whispered and let the darkness take me. carrying with it the weight of being the family giver, the eternal provider, the one who never said no. Somewhere above the anesthesia, I floated in dreams. My father appeared younger than I'd ever known him, wearing the suit from my college graduation photos. "My brave girl," he said, voice warm with pride. "You were always the strongest one." "I don't feel strong," I told Dream Dad. "I feel forgotten." Strength isn't about being remembered. It's about knowing when to let go. The surgical suite faded in and out. Beeping machines murmured conversations, someone saying, "more extensive than expected," and additional growth behind. Time meant nothing in this space between consciousness and void. "She's doing beautifully," a voice said. "Where's her family?" Transport service brought her. Emergency contact is listed as her assistant manager. That can't be right. But it was right. The only thing that had been right in a very long time. As the darkness pulled me deeper, I thought I heard my phone buzzing somewhere far away. 17 messages probably, sunset photos and cocktail updates, and not one question about whether I'd survived. The last thing I remembered was Patricia's voice, soft but fierce. "I don't care what the chart says. Nobody wakes up alone on my watch. I'll stay." And in that moment, floating between sleep and surgery, I understood something profound. Family isn't about DNA or shared history or obligation. Family is about who shows up when the anesthesia wears off, who holds your hand when you can't hold yourself, who stays when everyone else has chosen somewhere better to be. The tumor was being cut away, carefully extracted from behind my eye, but something else was being removed too. The desperate need to be needed, the compulsion to give, until empty the belief that love meant accepting crumbs while others feast. I was having brain surgery while my family drank margaritas in Cabo, and somehow, impossibly, that was exactly what needed to happen. Because when I woke up, when my vision cleared, I would finally see everything and everyone for exactly what they were. Consciousness returned in fragments. First the antiseptic smell that could only mean hospital, then a rhythmic beeping that matched the pulse I could feel in my temples. My mouth felt like cotton tongue, heavy and uncooperative. Slowly, carefully, I opened my eyes. The room wasn't empty. Patricia stood by the window, adjusting the blinds to soften the afternoon light. She turned at my slight movement, her face breaking into a warm smile. "There she is. Welcome back, brave one." I tried to speak, managed only a croak. Patricia was beside me instantly with a cup of ice chips. "Small amounts. Your throat's probably sore from the breathing tube. How's your pain level?" I held up 3 fingers. Manageable. Bearable. Nothing compared to reading that forwarded email 3 days ago. "Good. Dr. Matthews will be thrilled. Surgery went even better than expected, though it took a bit longer. You've been out for about 6 hours total." 6 hours. In Cabo time, that meant my family had probably finished their welcome cocktails unpacked in their ocean view suites, posted a dozen photos of paradise. I wondered if any of them had thought to check their messages to see if I'd survived having my skull opened. "There's something else," Patricia said, pulling a chair close to my bed. Her expression had shifted, carrying weight beyond medical updates. "Before you went under, I noticed your emergency contact situation. It bothered me all morning." She reached into her scrub pocket and pulled out an envelope. My name was written on it in careful script. "We had a patient last month, Eleanor Hartley. 91 years old, sharp as a tack. Brain surgery, just like you, though hers was more complicated. No family, no visitors, except..." Patricia paused, studying my face. "Every Sunday, a young woman would come to the recovery ward. She'd bring flowers, not for anyone specific, just for whoever needed them most. She'd sit with patients who had no one, read to them, help them write letters, just cared." My chest tightened. Those Sunday visits were my secret ritual, my way of balancing the universe. For every dollar I gave my ungrateful family, I gave an hour to strangers who needed connection. Eleanor was enchanted by this woman. asked about her constantly, the mystery visitor who remembered the forgotten. Patricia handed me the envelope. Before Eleanor passed last week, she left this with specific instructions. She made me promise to give it to Caitlin Morrison when she came in for her surgery. She knew about your tumor somehow, said she'd overheard you talking to another patient about it. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside 2 sheets of paper, the first a handwritten letter in shaky but determined cursive. Dear Caitlin, you don't know me, though. I feel I know you. For 8 Sundays you sat by my bed. You brought daisies because the nurse mentioned I grew them in my garden 70 years ago. You read me poetry when my eyes were too weak. You held my hand through the fear. I asked about you. Learned you visit every week, bringing light to those of us whose families have forgotten or forsaken. I wondered what kind of person gives so freely to strangers. Then I learned about your family. Always taking, never giving. Always needing, never seeing. I was like you once, gave everything to people who gave nothing back. It took me 90 years to learn what I hope you'll discover. Sooner the family we choose is more real than the family we're born to. I have no children, no relatives who remember my name, but I had you for 8 Sundays. That was more family than I'd felt in decades. The second page explains my final gift. Use it to choose yourself for once. With love and admiration, Eleanor Hartley. The second page was a legal document, a bequest notification from the law offices of Hartley and Associates. Eleanor Hartley had left me $50,000 and a note at the bottom in what looked like a lawyer's handwriting. Mrs. Hartley insisted this note be included for the woman who remembers the forgotten so she might remember herself. Tears ran down my face, stinging the surgical tape on my forehead. I'd brought flowers to a stranger, and she'd left me a future. My family had laughed at my surgery needs. A woman I'd known only in her final weeks had planned for my recovery before I even knew I'd need it. She talked about you constantly, Patricia said softly, handing me tissues. How you'd spend entire afternoons here moving room to room. The candy striper without the uniform, she called you. Said you had the kindest eyes she'd ever seen. I never told her my last name. I whispered voice, rough but functional. She was a retired judge, still had connections. Asked her son to find out who the Sunday Flower Girl was. He owns this hospital, actually. Judge William Hartley. He was estranged from his mother for 20 years. Some family dispute about money, imagine that. But when he learned about you, about what you'd done for her, he tried to reconcile. She agreed to see him, but only to arrange this bequest. Said you'd shown her more daughterly love than he'd shown in decades. Patricia checked my IV, adjusted the blanket over my legs. He wanted to meet you, but Eleanor forbade it. Said the gift should be pure, no strings or expectations. Just one woman who understands loneliness helping another. My phone sat on the bedside table. Patricia must have retrieved it from my belongings. The screen showed 23 notifications. I could imagine them all. Beach photos, restaurant check-ins, sunset cocktails. Look what you're missing. Wish you were here. Having the time of our lives. Your assistant is in the waiting room, Patricia added. Grace. She's been here since dawn. Should I send her in? I nodded, then caught Patricia's hand. Thank you for staying, for caring. Honey, I've been a surgical nurse for 20 years. I've seen every kind of family. The ones who camp in the waiting room, the ones who show up late, the ones who don't show up at all. But I've never seen someone wake up from brain surgery to find out a stranger left them a fortune because they were the only one who showed kindness. That tells me everything I need to know about who deserves to be surrounded by love and who's been surrounded by users. She left to get Grace, and I held Eleanor's letter against my chest. The money was overwhelming, but the recognition was everything. Someone had seen me. Not the ATM, not the family problem solver, not the reliable Caitlin who never said no. Eleanor had seen the woman who brought flowers to strangers because she understood what it felt like to be forgotten. Grace burst in, eyes red with worry and relief. Oh, thank God. I've been wearing a hole in the waiting room carpet. How do you feel? What did the doctor say? I brought your favorite tea, but they said you can't have it yet, so I drank it, but I can get more." She paused, her rambling took in my tear-stained face. "Caitlin, what's wrong? Is it bad news? The surgery?" "No," I managed. "Good news, unexpected news, impossible news." I showed her Eleanor's letter, watched her eyes widen at the bequest document. Grace sank into the chair Patricia had vacated, reading everything twice. $50,000 from a stranger. Not a stranger, just someone I didn't know was watching. Grace looked up at me, and her expression held something I rarely saw directed my way: protective anger. "Your family's in Cabo spending money you gave them, while a woman you showed basic human kindness to made sure you'd be okay. Do you see it now? Do you finally see what everyone else has been trying to tell you?" I touched the bandage on my head, felt the tender spot where they'd cut through skin and bone to remove what didn't belong. They took out 2 tumors, found another one during surgery, smaller hidden behind the first. Two things blocking my vision, 2 things that needed to be cut away. I met her eyes. "I see it now, Grace, all of it." My phone buzzed, another message in the family group chat. I didn't need to look. Didn't need to see what restaurant they'd chosen for dinner, or what cocktail Ashley was drinking, or how beautiful the sunset looked from their resort. Eleanor Hartley had given me more than money. She'd given me permission to stop watching other people live the life my sacrifices had purchased. "What are you going to do?" Grace asked. I thought of the lawyer I'd met with the documents I'd gathered, the forwarded email that revealed their true feelings. Thought of Eleanor alone for 20 years because of family disputes about money, finding more love from a stranger with flowers than from the son she'd birthed. First, I'm going to recover. Then I'm going to remember myself. Grace squeezed my hand. About time. Outside my window, Chicago stretched toward Lake Michigan, afternoon sun glinting off windows like scattered diamonds. Somewhere in Mexico, my family was toasting their vacation. Here in this hospital room, surrounded by chosen family, Patricia checking in every hour, Grace refusing to leave Eleanor's spirit in every word of her letter. I was exactly where I belonged. The tumors were gone. My vision was clearing, and for the first time in 32 years, I could see my worth measured in something other than what I could give away. I must have drifted off after Grace left to grab dinner because suddenly I was back in the operating room counting backward from 10. But this time, I could hear everything, see everything, while somehow also floating above my body on the table. "Wait, hold on," Dr. Matthews' voice sharp with concern. "There's something else here. Look at this scan." The monitors around my surgical site glowed with images of my brain, and even from my strange suspended viewpoint, I could see what had caught his attention. Behind the primary tumor, partially hidden like a shadow behind a mountain, lurked another mass. "Should we proceed?" This from another surgeon, someone I didn't recognize. "We didn't consent her for additional—" "We can't leave it." Dr. Matthews' tone brooked no argument. "See how it's wrapped around the optic nerve. If we take the primary but leave this, she'll be back within months, maybe weeks, and by then—" He didn't need to finish. By then it might be too late. By then the hidden tumor could steal what the visible one hadn't managed to take. "Call the family," someone suggested. "They should know the surgery will take longer." She listed an assistant manager as emergency contact. Patricia's voice cut through the medical chatter. "Family's unreachable, traveling." A moment of silence in the OR. Even unconscious, even floating in this strange dreamscape, I could feel their disbelief. Brain surgery and no family waiting for news. No one pacing the halls demanding updates, counting minutes until they heard their loved one had survived. "Then we make the call ourselves," Dr. Matthews decided. "In my 30 years of surgery, I've learned something. The patients who wake up alone often have the strongest will to survive. We give her our best." The surgery continued in my dream vision. I watched them work careful and precise, navigating the landscape of my brain like explorers in unmapped territory. The first tumor came away clean exactly as planned. But the second one, the hidden passenger, proved more stubborn. "It's like it doesn't want to let go," the assisting surgeon murmured. Floating there, I almost laughed. Of course it didn't want to let go. It was the physical manifestation of every toxic attachment I'd refused to sever, every unhealthy relationship. I'd clung to every instance of putting others' needs so far above my own that I'd forgotten I had needs at all. In my suspended state, time moved differently. Past and present blurred together. I saw myself at 25 turning down the Seattle job. "Mom needs me." I'd explained to the recruiter, who'd looked baffled at anyone rejecting such an opportunity. I saw myself at 28 emptying my savings for Tyler's rehab that he'd leave after 3 days. At 30, signing loan documents for Ashley's house down payment, telling myself that's what sisters do. "Got it," Dr. Matthews announced, and in my dream I felt something shift. Not just the tumor being lifted away, but something deeper. A weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying removed along with the damaged tissue. "She's going to have one hell of a headache when she wakes up," someone said. "But she's going to wake up," Patricia responded. "And see clearly. That's what matters." The scene shifted, and suddenly I was in a different room. Not the OR, but somewhere softer, dimmer. My father sat beside me, looking exactly as he had the last Christmas before his heart attack. Healthy, whole, wearing the ridiculously ugly sweater Tyler had given him as a joke. "There's my girl," he said, though his lips didn't move. In dreams, apparently, we communicate soul to soul. Though you're not really mine, you never were. Always belonged to yourself, even when you forgot. "Dad, Shh. He held up a hand. "I know what you're going to say. That you should have done more, been there more, saved me somehow. But sweetheart, you can't save people who won't save themselves. Not me from my cigarettes and stress. Not your mother from her bitterness. Not Ashley from her selfishness. Or Tyler from his demons." "Then why did you leave me with them?" His expression grew sad. "Because I was selfish too. Easier to let you handle everything than admit I'd raised 2 children who only knew how to take. Your mother and we failed Ashley and Tyler by never saying no, but we failed you worse by watching you give everything and never teaching you how to stop." The room began to fade around us. Dad was fading too, becoming translucent like morning mist. "But you figured it out, didn't you? That's why you're here having surgeons cut away what doesn't belong. Just promise me something." "Anything. When you wake up, when you can see clearly, don't let guilt make you blind again. They'll try, you know. The moment they realize the well has run dry, they'll come with buckets of shame and manipulation. Don't let them." "Dad, wait." But he was gone, and I was rising, floating up through layers of consciousness like a deep sea diver returning to the surface. Voices grew clearer, real voices, not dream echoes. "Response is good. Pupils are reactive. Caitlin, can you hear me?" I could. I could hear everything. The monitor beeping. Patricia murmuring encouragement. Someone else further away saying something about successful removal of both masses. Both. They'd found 2 tumors and taken them both. No wonder the surgery had stretched to 7 hours. "Family," I managed to croak. "Your assistant Grace is here. Has been all day. Should I—" "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. "My family. Did they—" Patricia's hesitation told me everything. "There have been no calls from your emergency contact list, but Grace has been checking in every hour, and there's a gentleman Carl says he drove you this morning. He dropped off flowers and a card from his daughter. Strangers, acquaintances, people I'd known for months or minutes showing more concern than the people I'd shared decades with. If I could have laughed without my head exploding, I would have." "There were complications." Dr. Matthews' voice closer now. "We found a second tumor during surgery. Smaller, but positioned in a way that would have caused significant problems if left untreated. We made the decision to remove it. I hope—" "Thank you." 2 words carrying more gratitude than I could express. He'd found what was hidden, cut away what I couldn't see, given me a chance at clarity I didn't even know I needed. "Recovery will be a bit longer," he continued. "The surgery was more extensive, but both tumors were benign and we achieved complete removal. Your prognosis is excellent." Excellent. Such a clinical word for such a monumental change. 2 invaders in my brain secretly stealing my sight, now gone. I wondered if there was a surgery to remove the emotional equivalents, the guilt tumors, the obligation lesions, the malignant need to be needed that had metastasized through 32 years of life. "Rest now," Patricia soothed. "Real healing starts when you stop fighting." As I drifted back toward sleep, I thought about hidden tumors, the ones that grow in shadows undetected until something forces us to look deeper. My family had been scheduled for Cabo for months, but they'd been gone much longer than that. Hidden behind the primary dysfunction growing in the shadows of obligation and guilt, nurtured by my inability to see what everyone else apparently knew. But Dr. Matthews had found them both, cut them both away, and when the bandages came off, when the swelling went down, when my vision cleared completely, I would finally see what had been there all along. Not the family I'd wished for, sacrificed, for emptied myself for, but the truth sharp and clear as surgical steel. The machines sang their electronic lullabies. Somewhere my phone held messages I didn't need to read. Somewhere else, much further away, my family raised glasses in a country I'd never visit on a vacation I'd helped pay for. And here, in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic, and hope I began the long journey back to myself. 2 tumors down. How many more to go? True consciousness returned slowly like developing film in a dark room. First awareness of sound, not the sharp medical voices from surgery, but softer conversations, the rustle of papers, quiet typing on a laptop keyboard. Then light filtering through my closed eyelids, warm but not harsh. Finally, sensation beyond the expected headache, a hand holding mine gentle but present. But I opened my eyes to find my hospital room transformed. Flowers covered every surface, not elaborate arrangements or funeral sprays, but simple bouquets in mason jars and coffee mugs. Daisies and carnations, the kind you grab at grocery stores when you remember someone needs remembering. The kind I'd brought to strangers for months of Sundays. Grace sat beside my bed laptop, balanced on her knees, typing one-handed, while her other hand held mine. She was wearing the same clothes from this morning. Yesterday morning, time had gone elastic, stretched and compressed by anesthesia and pain medication. "The quarterly reports can wait," she said without looking up, somehow sensing my consciousness. "But Peterson's being a pain about the Johnson account, so I'm handling it. Don't even think about asking for details until that crease between your eyebrows goes away." I tried to speak, found my throat desert dry. Grace was ready with ice chips, helping me sit up slightly, adjusting pillows with practiced ease. "Before you ask, it's Saturday afternoon. Your surgery was yesterday morning. You've been in and out for about 30 hours. And yes, I've been here the whole time, so don't start with the guilt. My couch at home is lumpy anyway." "The flowers?" "Ah, that." Grace gestured around the room with obvious pleasure. "Word got out. Don't ask me how, but around 10 this morning they started arriving. John from the loading dock brought those roses. Said you're the only executive who knows his grandkids' names. The cafeteria ladies sent that fruit basket with a note that says, 'For the only one who says please and thank you.' The overnight security crew pooled money for those Gerbera daisies." She pointed to each arrangement as she spoke. "Those tulips from the therapy dog handler at the children's hospital. Apparently you always carry treats for her golden retriever. The orchid is from the parking attendant whose daughter you tutored in math. I had no idea you were tutoring anyone's daughter in math. Neither had my family. They'd never asked how I spent my evenings, my weekends, my lunch hours. If it didn't benefit them directly, it didn't exist in their world. And these," Grace lifted a particularly cheerful bunch of sunflowers, "are from your Sunday patients. Somehow Patricia got word to them. There's a card." With shaking hands, I opened the small envelope. Different handwriting styles covered the card, some steady, some wavering with age or illness. To our Sunday angel, now it's our turn to remember you. Rest and heal. We'll be here when you're ready. Love Ward 7B. Tears came then silent but steady salt water washing away the last residue of anesthesia fog. In 2 days, I'd received more genuine care from strangers and acquaintances than I'd received from family in years. The contrast was so sharp it physically hurt a pain no morphine could touch. Patricia entered with my afternoon medications, took one look at my face, and made a small sound of understanding. It's a lot, isn't it? Finding out how many people actually see you. She checked my vitals with gentle efficiency. Your numbers look good. Pain level 4, I admitted, maybe 5. That's to be expected. You had extensive surgery, but everything looks exactly as it should. Dr. Matthews will be by soon for rounds. She paused at the door. Oh, and there's someone in the waiting room. Been there about an hour. Says he's your brother. My stomach clenched. Tyler. Here. Which meant either genuine concern had finally penetrated his selfishness, or more likely he'd seen the news coverage of Eleanor's bequest. $50,000 had a way of making family remember you existed. I started, but Grace cut me off. Would you like me to see what he wants first reconnaissance mission? I nodded grateful again for this woman who'd become more sister to me than Ashley had ever been. Grace squeezed my hand and left passing Patricia in the doorway. That one's a keeper, Patricia observed. Real family shows up in actions, not just DNA. While Grace was gone, I let myself truly see the room. Beyond the flowers, evidence of care surrounded me. A phone charger plugged in beside my bed. Grace knew I hated having a dead battery. A soft blanket that wasn't hospital issue draped over my legs. A stack of my favorite tea bags on the nightstand, waiting for when I could have hot liquids. Small thoughtfulnesses that spoke of attention of being known. My phone sat face down on the table. I'd made it this far without checking the family group chat, but curiosity won and I flipped it over. 47 notifications. I scrolled through each message, another twist of the knife. Ashley, sunset from our balcony, paradise. Mom, the spa here is incredible. Much needed relaxation. Tyler, caught a marlin. Check out this beauty. Ashley, missing you sis. Next year for sure. Mom, hope your procedure went well, sweetheart. Procedure. Like I'd had a mole removed, not tumors extracted from my brain. The casual dismissal of it, the way they'd diminished, even this made my hands shake with rage. Then further down, a shift in tone. Tyler, hey, why aren't you answering? Ashley, hello, Caitlin, stop being dramatic. Mom, your brother says you're getting some big inheritance, call us back. Tyler, just saw the news about Eleanor Hartley. WTF, Caitlin. Ashley, is this why you've been MIA seriously? And finally, from this morning, Tyler, I'm flying back. We need to talk about this inheritance situation. Family first, remember? Family first. The audacity of it. The sheer breathtaking hypocrisy of using those words now after choosing Cabo over my crisis, after plotting to steal my father's legacy, after years of taking and taking and taking until I had nothing left to give except what a stranger had seen fit to leave me. Grace returned her expression thunderous. Oh, you're not going to believe this. He's here about the money. Didn't even ask how your surgery went, just launched into this whole speech about how family shares windfalls and how you'd obviously want to help with his new business venture. He has a new business venture. Apparently. Something about cryptocurrency and NFTs. I might have told him you were still in critical condition and couldn't have visitors. I might have also mentioned that security has been notified about potential disruptions to patient recovery. Grace. No, absolutely not. You just had brain surgery, literal brain surgery, and he's here with his hand out. I don't think so. She settled back into her chair, protective fury radiating from every line of her body. Patricia agreed, by the way, said she'd handle it. As if summoned, Patricia reappeared. Your brother has been encouraged to leave. I explained that you're in no condition for stressful visits and that your medical team has restricted access to approved visitors only. He left this. She handed me an envelope. Tyler's messy handwriting scrawled across the front, "We need to talk, T." I didn't open it. Instead, I handed it back to Patricia. "Could you dispose of this medical waste, maybe?" Patricia's smile was sharp with approval. "Absolutely. Can't have contaminated materials in a sterile environment." The next few hours passed in a blur of medical checks, medication adjustments, and gentle conversations. Dr. Matthews confirmed the surgery's complete success. Both tumors removed cleanly, no signs of complications, vision already improving. "You're lucky we caught that second one," he said. "Another month or two and the damage might have been permanent." Lucky. I thought of the family group chat I'd checked that morning 3 days ago, their laughter at my simple request for help. If they'd agreed to delay Cabo by even 1 day, would I have mentioned the surgery details? Would their presence have somehow prevented that second tumor from being found? Or would their toxic energy have clouded the room, making everyone miss what needed to be seen? "When can I go home?" I asked. "Tomorrow, if someone can stay with you for 48 hours. The home health aide you arranged is perfect for medical needs, but you'll want emotional support too. Brain surgery can be disorienting. Having familiar faces helps ground you." Familiar faces. I looked around the room full of flowers from people I'd shown passing kindness to. At Grace, still typing away at her laptop while keeping one eye on my monitors. At Patricia, who'd stayed past her shift yesterday because she wouldn't let me wake up alone. These were my familiar faces. The ones who showed up without being asked, who gave without keeping score, who saw me as more than a resource to be drained. My family was in Cabo, probably on their 3rd round of margaritas by now, but I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. I'd just been looking for love in the wrong DNA. "I'll have someone," I told Dr. Matthews, and for the first time in my life, I knew it was true. Sunday morning brought Margaret the home health aide I'd hired, but she wasn't alone. Grace arrived simultaneously, arms full of supplies and determination. "I've rearranged my entire week," Grace announced, setting up what looked like a mobile office in my living room. "Margaret handles the medical stuff, I handle everything else, non-negotiable." Margaret, a sturdy woman in her 50s with kind eyes and skilled hands, checked my surgical site with professional gentleness. Healing beautifully, pain level 3, sometimes 4. "That's excellent for day 2. Let's keep you comfortable and hydrated." She moved through my apartment with quiet efficiency, noting where I kept medications, checking sight lines from bed to bathroom, ensuring everything I might need was within safe reach. Grace had pulled out a thick folder spreading papers across my coffee table with the focus she usually reserved for million-dollar accounts. "Okay, so while you were unconscious, I might have done some digging." "Grace, just hear me out." She held up the forwarded email from Ashley, the one revealing their plans to cut me out of Dad's remaining estate. "This is fraud, Caitlin, like actual legal fraud. Your mom accessing accounts in your name. That's identity theft. The 3 of them conspiring to hide assets while you were grieving, there are laws against that." I settled carefully onto my couch, head still tender but mind increasingly clear. "It's fine. I don't want their money." "No, it's not fine." Grace's voice carried an edge I'd rarely heard. "And it's not their money. It's yours. Your dad left it to you, just like Eleanor Hartley left you that money. Because people who actually paid attention saw who you really are." She pulled out more documents, 4 years of meticulous records, every time I'd left work early for a family emergency, every promotion I'd passed up to stay available, every project I'd delegated because Ashley needed emergency childcare, or Tyler needed bail money, or Mom needed a ride to somewhere that couldn't wait. "Remember the Henderson acquisition?" Grace asked. "You were lead analyst. It was your baby. But you handed it off to Derek because Ashley needed someone to watch her kids during her emergency. Want to guess where she actually was?" She showed me Ashley's social media from that day. spa treatments, champagne brunch, shopping selfies. While I'd been explaining to Derek how to present my months of work, my sister had been getting a hot stone massage. Or this one, another document. The weekend you missed the executive leadership retreat because Tyler was in crisis, the retreat where they decided on the new VP of Finance. She showed me Tyler's posts from that weekend. Las Vegas, poker tables, showgirls. You didn't get the promotion because you weren't there to advocate for yourself, because you were home waiting for a call from a brother who was too busy gambling to remember he'd called you crying. The evidence went on. Receipts for flights I'd missed, conferences I'd skipped, opportunities I'd declined, all sacrificed on the altar of family need. And for each sacrifice, Grace had found the corresponding evidence of betrayal. Beach vacations taken with money I'd lent for emergencies, shopping sprees funded by loans never repaid, luxury purchases made while I was paying their bills. Why, I asked, though I wasn't sure if I was asking Grace or the universe. Why did I let this happen? Because you're good. Grace's answer was simple. Because you believe in family and loyalty and love. Because you have what they lack, a functioning heart. But being good doesn't mean being a doormat. Being loving doesn't mean being used. Margaret, who'd been quietly organizing medications, spoke up. I see this all the time in home health. The givers and the takers, the ones who empty themselves for others and the ones who let them. It's not noble honey, it's just sad. My phone buzzed, Ashley calling. I let it ring through to voicemail, then played the message on speaker. Caitlin, this is ridiculous. Tyler said you're refusing visitors. We're your family. We're flying back early because clearly you're not thinking straight. The surgery must have affected your judgment. We'll be there by tonight. And we need to talk about this Eleanor woman and why she left you money. That's just weird, Caitlin. Normal people don't inherit from strangers. See you soon. Absolutely not, Grace said, already pulling out her phone. What's your building security number? While she handled that, I looked at the papers spread before me. 4 years of documentation, but really it was 32 years of pattern. Me giving them taking, me sacrificing them benefiting, me struggling alone while they vacationed together on my dime. I consulted a lawyer, Grace admitted. My cousin Catherine Reeves. She says you have a strong case. Fraud, elder, financial abuse, identity theft. Your mom's been signing your name on documents. That's prison time, potentially. Prison. My mother. The woman who'd held my hand through chicken pox, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd also apparently been stealing from me while I paid for her lifestyle. She also said something else, Grace continued more gently, about the emotional abuse, the gaslighting, making you feel guilty for having needs while they drained you dry. That's harder to prosecute, but in civil court with all this evidence, they're my family. No. Grace's voice was firm. I'm your family. Patricia, who stayed past her shift, is family. Carl, the driver who brought you flowers. Margaret here, who's making sure you heal, write the Sunday patients who sent cards. That's family. Those people in Cabo. They're just relatives. There's a difference. My laptop chimed with an email notification. Catherine Reeves, attorney at law. The subject line read, Initial Case Assessment, Morrison Family Fraud. I opened it with trembling fingers. Catherine's assessment was thorough and damning. Based on the forwarded email and Grace's documentation, I had grounds for multiple legal actions. The money my father had set aside for me, the accounts my mother had accessed, the systematic financial abuse disguised as family loyalty. All actionable, all winnable. But more than the legal arguments, one paragraph stood out. Ms. Morrison, in my 20 years of practice, I've seen many cases of family financial abuse. They all share common elements: isolation of the victim, normalization of exploitative behavior, and the manipulation of love and loyalty. What your family has done goes beyond mere selfishness. It represents a calculated pattern of extraction that has cost you not just money, but opportunities, career advancement, and personal growth. The law can recover your financial losses. Only you can recover yourself. She wants to meet tomorrow, Grace said, "after your follow-up with Dr. Matthews." I thought about Eleanor Hartley, alone in her hospital bed, estranged from family over money. But she'd found peace in the end, found connection with a stranger who brought flowers, found clarity about what mattered and what didn't. Her gift wasn't just $50,000, it was permission to choose differently. "Okay," I said, "set up the meeting." Grace smiled, fierce and protective. "That's my girl. Now let Margaret check your vitals while I order lunch, and if your family shows up, they can explain themselves to building security. Doctor's orders were clear. No stressful visitors." As Margaret wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. Surgical bandage still wrapped around my head, face pale, but eyes clear. I looked fragile and fierce simultaneously, like someone who'd had important things cut away and was still deciding what to grow in their place. My phone buzzed again. Tyler this time. "This is bullshit, Caitlin. You can't lock out family. We have rights." Rights. They wanted to talk about rights. The right to my money, my time, my energy. The right to drain me dry while giving nothing back. The right to plan Cabo trips during my brain surgery, then cry foul when consequences came calling. I turned the phone face down and let Margaret finish her examination. Tomorrow I'd meet with Catherine. I'd file papers. I'd start the process of reclaiming not just money, but myself. Today I'd rest in the care of chosen family, while my DNA relatives scrambled to figure out why the ATM had suddenly stopped dispensing. The tumors were gone. My vision was clearing. And for the first time in 3 decades, I was ready to see my family for exactly what they were. More importantly, I was ready to show them exactly who I'd become. Monday morning, I was settling in for my follow-up appointment with Dr. Matthews when my phone exploded with calls. Ashley, Mom, Tyler. All at once, like they'd coordinated their assault. I'd kept it on silent, but watching their names flash repeatedly across the screen felt like witnessing a desperate performance. Finally, Ashley got through by calling from an unknown number. Her voice when I answered was pitched high with hysteria. "Caitlin, thank God we just saw the news brain surgery. 2 tumors. Why didn't you tell us it was that serious?" In the background, I could hear airport announcements. The bustle of travel, the echo of a terminal. They were really coming back. "I did tell you," I said calmly. "I asked for a ride home from surgery. You laughed." "We didn't know it was brain surgery. You just said, surgery. You should have been specific." "Would it have mattered?" Silence. Then Mom's voice grabbing the phone. "Caitlin, sweetheart, we're at the Cabo airport. We're trying to get flights back. I'm beside myself. My baby had brain surgery and I wasn't there." The performance was impressive. If I hadn't seen the email chain, hadn't read their mockery, I might have believed the concern was genuine. But clarity Dr. Matthews had said was a common side effect of tumor removal, and I was seeing everything with crystalline sharpness. "There's no need to come back," I said. "The surgery is over. I'm recovering well." But the news said there were complications. Something about an inheritance, Caitlin. What's going on? Why is Eleanor Hartley leaving you money? How do you even know this woman? There it was. Buried the lead for less than 30 seconds. The surgery, the complications, my well-being. All just preamble to the real concern. The money. Tyler's voice joined the chorus. "Yeah, sis, this is all really weird. Some old lady you don't know leaves you 50 grand. People are going to think you manipulated her or something. We need to handle this as a family." Handle this as a family, like they'd handled my surgery by choosing margaritas over my well-being. "Eleanor knew me from my Sunday hospital visits," I said evenly. "I brought her flowers, kept her company. Basic human kindness." "Your Sunday, what?" Ashley sounded genuinely baffled. "What are you talking about?" Of course they didn't know. They'd never asked how I spent my weekends, my free time, my life beyond serving their needs. The idea that I had an existence outside of being their personal resource had never occurred to them. "I need to go," I said. "My doctor's here." "Wait, Caitlin, we're family. We should be there." "You should be in Cabo," I countered. That trip was planned for months, remember? Don't guilt me. I hung up on Ashley's sputtering and blocked all 3 numbers. The relief was immediate, like removing tight shoes after a long day. Dr. Matthews chose that moment to enter, taking in my expression with professional assessment. Family drama, he guessed. It's not uncommon after major surgery. Crises have a way of revealing people's true priorities. You could say that. I tucked my phone away. How do I look medically speaking? Remarkable. He examined my surgical site, checked my reflexes, tested my vision. The swelling is minimal. Your cognition is sharp. Pain levels 2, maybe 3 in the mornings. Excellent. Any vision disturbances? The opposite, actually. Everything seems clearer. He smiled at that. I hear that a lot with tumor removals. Physical clarity leading to other forms of clarity. It's quite common for patients to make major life changes after brain surgery. The proximity to mortality tends to crystallize priorities. After he cleared me for normal activities with reasonable precautions, Grace drove me to Catherine Reeves's office. The lawyer was everything I'd hoped, sharp professional and righteously angry on my behalf after reviewing the evidence. This is extensive financial fraud, she said, spreading out the documents Grace had compiled. Your mother accessing accounts in your name, forging signatures, hiding assets. The email chain alone shows conspiracy to commit fraud. Add in the emotional manipulation, the pattern of exploitation. We're looking at both criminal and civil actions. What are my options? Legally, we can pursue full recovery of all misappropriated funds, plus damages. The inheritance your father set aside the money your mother has been siphoning, potentially even recovery of the loans to your siblings that were never repaid. Criminally, your mother could face identity theft charges. The weight of it sat heavy in the room, sending my mother to prison, suing my siblings, the nuclear option for a family that had already detonated. Or, Catherine continued, we can use this as leverage for a settlement. Full repayment, no contact orders, clean break. They get to avoid criminal charges and public humiliation. You get your life back. What do you recommend? Honestly, the clean break. Criminal prosecution is messy, emotionally draining, and keeps them in your life for years, through court proceedings. A settlement with strict terms gets you free faster. She leaned forward. But this is your choice. What do you want? What did I want for them to love me the way I'd love them? Too late for that. For them to apologize to see how they'd hurt me. They weren't capable. For the past to be different. Impossible. I want to be free, I said finally. I want what's mine, and then I want them gone. Catherine smiled. Then let's make that happen. We spent 2 hours crafting the demand letter, return of all fraudulently accessed funds, repayment of documented loans, transfer of my father's intended inheritance. In exchange, no criminal prosecution. The terms included a no-contact order. They were to make no attempts to communicate with me directly or indirectly. This is generous, Catherine warned. They're getting off easy. I know. But every day they're in my life is another day I'm not healing. The money matters, but my peace matters more. Grace drove me home in contemplative silence. As we pulled up to my building, my phone buzzed with texts from unknown numbers. Ashley, Tyler, and Mom had apparently gotten new phones or borrowed them to circumvent my blocks. We're at O'Hare coming to you. This is insane, Caitlin. Unblock us. Found out where you live. Be there soon. I showed Grace, who immediately called building security. They're not on the approved list, she said firmly. No one gets up without confirmation. An hour later, security called. My family was in the lobby demanding access. Mom was crying. Ashley was threatening legal action. Tyler was insisting on his rights as family. I could hear them in the background, their voices carrying through the phone. Send them away, I instructed. If they refuse, call the police. Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, the desk sergeant mentioned you're the nice lady who brings cookies at Christmas. We've got your back. Another unexpected alliance. Another reminder that I'd built a network of connections through small kindnesses, while my family built expectations through endless taking. 20 minutes later, Grace's phone rang. Ashley probably finding the number through my office directory. Grace put it on speaker after checking with me. "This is insane," Ashley screamed. "She's our sister. Our mother is in the lobby crying. What kind of person does this to family?" "The kind who just had brain surgery alone while you posted beach selfies," Grace replied coolly. "The kind who's done being an ATM, the kind who's finally choosing herself." "You don't understand that inheritance story is all over the news. People are asking questions, Mom's friends are calling. This is humiliating." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before planning to steal her inheritance," Grace suggested. "Or before laughing at her surgery request. Or before any of the 1,000 times you took advantage of her kindness." She hung up on Ashley's threats to sue everyone from the building to the hospital to Grace personally. "Well," Grace said with satisfaction, "that felt good." My phone continued buzzing with messages from unknown numbers, but I didn't read them. Catherine had advised no contact until the legal papers were served. Tomorrow, a process server would deliver the demand letter to each of them. Tomorrow, the legal machinery would start turning. Tonight, I sat in my apartment surrounded by flowers from people who barely knew me, but cared more than those who'd known me longest. Margaret had left soup in the refrigerator. Patricia had texted to check in. Carl, the driver, had sent a card from his daughter thanking me again for the encouragement during her recovery. I thought about family real and chosen, about blood and water and which was truly thicker, about tumors hidden and visible and what happened when you finally cut them away. My head ached, but it was healing. My heart ached, but it was learning. Somewhere in Chicago, my biological family was probably regrouping, planning their next assault. Let them come. I had building security and legal papers and the kind of clarity that only comes from having your skull opened and your illusions removed. The surgery had taken 7 hours. 32 years of toxic patterns would take longer to fully excise. But the process had begun. And just like Dr. Matthews had promised, my vision had never been clearer. Tuesday morning brought the inevitable escalation. Catherine called at 8 sharp, her voice carrying a mix of professional concern and barely suppressed anger. "Your family received the demand letters. Their response was dramatic." "How dramatic?" I asked, though I could already imagine. "They've hired Jonathan Fitzgerald to file an emergency petition for conservatorship. They're claiming the brain surgery left you mentally incompetent and that you're being manipulated by opportunistic strangers." I sat down heavily, grateful Margaret was there to steady me. "They're trying to declare me incompetent. The petition cites your erratic behavior, namely blocking family members, refusing visitors, and making unusual financial decisions. They're requesting immediate control of your assets, including the Hartley inheritance." The audacity of it stole my breath. While I was recovering from brain surgery, they'd dismissed they were plotting to steal not just my inheritance, but my autonomy, my right to make my own choices. "The good news," Catherine continued, "is that filing from Mexico was a mistake. They'll have to appear in person for the hearing. And here's the interesting part. The judge assigned to the case is William Hartley." Hartley. The name resonated like a bell. Eleanor's son. The very same. He's notoriously fair, takes no nonsense, and happens to have first-hand knowledge of why his mother left you that bequest. This couldn't have worked out better if we'd planned it. Grace, who'd been listening on speaker, made a sound of dark satisfaction. "So they left you alone for brain surgery to party in Mexico, and now they want to claim you're not competent. The irony is breathtaking." Catherine outlined our response strategy, affidavits from Dr. Matthews confirming my full mental capacity, statements from Patricia, Margaret, and others attesting to my sound decision-making, the forwarded email chain showing their premeditated plans to exclude me from family assets. "We'll bury them in evidence of their neglect and exploitation," she said. "But Caitlin, I need you to understand, this will get ugly. They're cornered and desperate. Desperate people do destructive things. She was right. Within hours, my phone exploded with messages from extended family members, former mutual friends, even colleagues whose numbers my family had somehow obtained. Your mother is heartbroken. How can you do this to your own family? Ashley says you've lost your mind. Tyler told me about the money. Don't be greedy. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on the affidavits Catherine needed. Dr. Matthews provided a detailed medical statement that was beautifully scathing in its professional language. Ms. Morrison exhibited exceptional mental clarity throughout her preoperative, operative, and postoperative course. Her decision-making capacity remains intact, and if anything has improved, following the successful removal of 2 meningiomas. Any suggestion of diminished capacity is medically unfounded and contradicted by all clinical evidence. Patricia's statement was more personal but equally powerful. In 20 years of surgical nursing, I've seen how families respond to medical crises. Ms. Morrison's family chose vacation over her critical surgery, then appeared only when news of an inheritance surfaced. Her decision to limit contact with individuals who have shown such callous disregard for her well-being demonstrates excellent judgment and appropriate self-protection. By Wednesday, Catherine had assembled a formidable defense, but the universe wasn't done with surprises. That afternoon, a courier delivered an unexpected package, a thick manila envelope from the law offices of Hartley and Associates. Inside, a letter from Judge William Hartley himself, carefully worded to avoid any appearance of judicial impropriety. Ms. Morrison, as I must recuse myself from your case due to obvious conflicts of interest, I wanted to ensure certain documents reached you before proceedings begin. My mother kept meticulous records, including recordings of our conversations about you. While I cannot participate in your legal matter, these materials belong to you as part of my mother's estate. What you do with them is your choice. The enclosed USB drive contains our recorded conversations and her personal notes about the flower girl, who reminded her that kindness still exists. With respect, William Hartley, Grace helped me load the USB drive into my laptop. Eleanor's voice filled my living room, aged but strong. William, I need to tell you about someone, a young woman who visits the hospital every Sunday. She brought me daisies. How did she know I love daisies? She sat with me for 2 hours today, reading poetry. Keats and Frost and Mary Oliver. She didn't know I was a judge, didn't know about our money. She just saw an old woman alone and decided to care. Another recording dated 2 weeks later. I asked the nurses about her, Caitlin Morrison. She's been visiting for months, bringing flowers to anyone without visitors. But William, she's suffering. Her family treats her terribly. I overheard her on the phone. They needed money again. She always says yes, always gives. It's killing her slowly, this compulsive giving to people who only take. The final recording was from the day before Eleanor's death. I've made a decision about the money you and I have fought about for 20 years. I'm leaving a portion to the flower girl. She'll protest, say she doesn't deserve it. But William, she's the only one who ever gave me anything without expecting payment. 20 years you visited when you needed something. She visited because I needed something. That's the difference between family and family. Make sure she gets it. Make sure she knows someone saw her worth. I sat in silence after the recordings ended, tears streaming down my face. Even from beyond death, Eleanor was advocating for me. This woman I'd known for 8 weeks understood me better than the family I'd known for 3 decades. This changes everything, Catherine said when I forwarded her the files. Not legally. Judge Hartley was right to recuse himself. But publicly, the narrative your family's trying to spin about you manipulating a vulnerable old woman just evaporated. Thursday's emergency hearing was set for 2 o'clock. I dressed carefully. Professional but not severe, confident but not aggressive. The surgical scar was still visible despite my carefully styled hair. Let them see it, I decided. Let them see what they dismissed. The courthouse was a circus. Somehow, the press had gotten wind of the story. Family abandons daughter during brain surgery, then sues for her inheritance, made for compelling headlines. Reporters clustered on the courthouse steps. Inside, my family had already assembled. They looked tanned from Cabo but haggard from stress. Mom had clearly been crying. Her makeup was smeared, her usual perfect composure cracked. Ashley clutched Tyler's arm, shooting me wounded looks across the aisle. Tyler just glared, his jaw set in familiar stubborn lines. The judge, not Hartley but the Honorable Patricia Chen, reviewed the petition with obvious skepticism. Jonathan Fitzgerald, my family's attorney, painted a picture of a mentally compromised woman making rash decisions under the influence of manipulative strangers. The timeline speaks for itself, Your Honor. Within days of serious brain surgery, Ms. Morrison cut off all contact with her loving family. She's clearly not thinking rationally. Catherine's response was surgical in its precision. She presented the forwarded email chain, highlighting the dates. Plans to exclude me from inheritance were made months before my surgery. She submitted my family's own group chat messages, their LOL response to my surgery request, blown up on poster board. Your Honor, the evidence shows a clear pattern. Ms. Morrison's family planned a vacation knowing it conflicted with her surgery. They dismissed her request for basic assistance. They were actively planning to defraud her of her inheritance. The only thing Ms. Morrison is guilty of is finally protecting herself from financial and emotional abuse. But the killing blow came from an unexpected source. Judge Chen asked if there were any other relevant witnesses. A woman in the gallery stood up. Your Honor, I'm Dr. Sarah Kim, psychiatric consultant at Northwestern Memorial. I performed Ms. Morrison's post-operative psychological evaluation at her surgeon's request. My family's attorney objected. No notice of this witness had been given. Judge Chen overruled him, noting that the emergency nature of the hearing limited normal discovery. Dr. Kim's testimony was devastating. Ms. Morrison shows no signs of cognitive impairment. In fact, her psychological profile indicates someone emerging from long-term emotional abuse. Her decision to establish boundaries with individuals who have consistently exploited her generosity demonstrates improved mental health, not deterioration. Did Ms. Morrison discuss her family relationships? Judge Chen asked. Extensively. She provided documentation of financial exploitation spanning years. She described a pattern of sacrificing her own needs, career advancement, and financial security to meet endless family demands that were never reciprocated. And her current mental state, remarkably healthy for someone recovering from both brain surgery and the realization of systematic family betrayal. Her choices reflect self-preservation, not incapacity. The judge's ruling was swift and unequivocal. I find no evidence of mental incapacity. In fact, the evidence suggests Ms. Morrison is making sound decisions to protect herself from individuals who have shown a disturbing pattern of exploitation. The petition is denied. But Judge Chen wasn't finished. Furthermore, given the evidence of potential financial fraud presented, I'm referring this matter to the State Attorney's Office for investigation. Mr. Fitzgerald, please advise your clients that attempting to access Ms. Morrison's assets during this investigation would be extremely inadvisable. The courtroom erupted. Mom sobbed loudly. Ashley shouted something about betrayal. Tyler had to be restrained from approaching our table. Through it all, I sat quietly feeling the weight of 32 years lifting from my shoulders. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Catherine fielded questions while Grace hustled me to a waiting car. But I caught sight of my family being escorted out a side door, and for just a moment, our eyes met. They looked shocked, confused, like they genuinely couldn't understand how we'd gotten here. How their reliable ATM had suddenly grown a spine and hired a lawyer, how their carefully planned inheritance theft had turned into potential criminal charges. I felt no satisfaction in their distress, only a deep, weary sadness for the family we could have been if they'd ever seen me as more than a resource to exploit. "You did it," Grace said as we pulled away. "You stood up to them." I cut them out, I corrected, like tumors, like things that were slowly killing me. Back home, flowers continued to arrive. My Sunday patients following the story in the news sent cards of support. Carl the driver left a voicemail saying his daughter was proud of me. Patricia texted that the entire surgical ward was cheering. These people who owed me nothing offered more support than the family who owed me everything. The irony wasn't lost on me. In losing my biological family, I discovered my chosen one. Catherine called that evening. The state attorney is very interested in the fraud case. Your mother's signature on those documents is clearly forged. This could get serious quickly. What do you recommend? Same as before. Leverage this for a clean break. Full restitution, no contact, everyone walks away. Or we can pursue charges and watch your mother potentially face prison time. I thought about Mom teaching me to ride a bike, her hands steady on the seat until I found my balance. Then I thought about her accessing accounts in my name, stealing what my father had left me while I paid her bills. Offer them the settlement, I decided. I want this over. You're sure? I'm sure. The money matters, but my freedom matters more. Every day there in my life is another day I'm not healing. That night, I sat with Eleanor's recordings playing softly in the background, her voice talking about the flower girl who brought light to her final days, her understanding that family was about who showed up, not who shared DNA. My phone was quiet for the first time in days. The blocks held the legal machinery turned, and for the first time in 32 years, I wasn't responsible for anyone's crisis, but my own. The tumors were gone. The toxic bonds were severed. And tomorrow I would begin the long, necessary work of learning who Caitlin Morrison was when she wasn't emptying herself for others. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was long, long overdue. The settlement meeting was scheduled for Monday morning at the courthouse. Catherine had worked through the weekend crafting terms that were generous enough to avoid criminal prosecution, but firm enough to ensure my freedom. I'd spent the time recovering both physically and emotionally surrounded by the chosen family that had emerged from unexpected places. But the universe had one more surprise in store. Caitlin. Catherine's voice on Sunday evening carried an odd note. The judge assigned to oversee the settlement conference tomorrow. It's William Hartley. I thought he recused himself. From the conservatorship hearing, yes. But this is a different matter. A settlement conference, not a ruling on competency. He can oversee this, and frankly, I think he pulled strings to get the assignment. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly fitting weather for burying family relationships. I dressed carefully again, this time adding Eleanor's nurse pin that Patricia had given me. Apparently, Eleanor had been a nurse before law school, and she'd left it to the hospital with instructions to give it to the flower girl. The conference room was smaller than the courtroom, more intimate. My family sat across the polished table looking diminished. The Cabo tans had faded, replaced by a grayish pallor that spoke of sleepless nights and anxiety. Mom clutched a tissue box. Ashley kept checking her phone. Tyler stared at the table, jaw clenched. Judge Hartley entered with measured steps, his resemblance to Eleanor striking now that I knew to look for it. The same sharp intelligence in the eyes, the same way of holding his head when listening. He settled into his chair and surveyed both sides with judicial neutrality. We're here to discuss a potential settlement that would resolve all current disputes between the parties, he began. Ms. Reeves, would you present the terms? Catherine outlined our demands with clinical precision. Return of all fraudulently accessed funds, $63,000. Payment of documented loans, $47,000. Transfer of the inheritance my father had specifically set aside for me, $200,000. In exchange, no criminal prosecution, no civil suits, and a mutual no-contact order. That's over $300,000, Ashley burst out. We don't have that kind of money. Perhaps you should have considered that before planning to steal it, Judge Hartley observed mildly. Continue, Ms. Reeves. The negotiations went back and forth. Jonathan Fitzgerald argued the amounts were inflated, that some of the loans were gifts, that the inheritance was meant for the whole family. Catherine countered with documentation for every claim: bank records, text messages, emails acknowledging the loans. Then Judge Hartley did something unexpected. "Mr. Fitzgerald are your clients, aware of the full scope of potential criminal charges here. Your Honor, we believe criminal prosecution would be excessive." "That wasn't my question." The judge's tone sharpened. "Are they aware that Ms. Morrison's mother could face up to 15 years for identity theft and fraud, that conspiracy charges could be filed against all three for the attempted inheritance scheme?" The color drained from Mom's face. 15 years. "Federal charges if the interstate banking elements are pursued." Judge Hartley's voice remained neutral, but his eyes were intense. "The evidence Ms. Reeves has compiled is comprehensive. Text messages discussing the scheme, bank records showing unauthorized access, a forwarded email clearly outlining conspiracy to commit fraud." He paused, letting the weight of it sink in. "In my experience, the state attorney's office would view this as a particularly egregious case. The defendant was recovering from brain surgery while her family plotted to steal her inheritance. Juries tend to be unsympathetic to such behavior." Tyler finally spoke. "This is insane. We're family. Families share things, help each other." "Indeed," Judge Hartley agreed, "which makes it all the more troubling that Ms. Morrison was left to arrange her own transportation from brain surgery while you were posting pictures of margaritas on social media." The reference was specific. He'd done his homework, reviewed the evidence. This wasn't just a settlement conference, it was a reckoning. "Your Honor," Jonathan Fitzgerald tried, "surely there's a middle ground." "Mr. Fitzgerald, let me share something with you." Judge Hartley leaned back in his chair. "For 20 years, I was estranged from my mother over money. 20 years of silence, of bitterness, of wasted time. She died last month." His gaze moved to my family. "Do you know what reconciled us, learning about your client? My mother spoke of Ms. Morrison constantly in her final weeks, the young woman who brought flowers to strangers, who spent her Sundays visiting the forgotten, who gave freely while her own family bled her dry." He looked directly at my mother. "My mother left Ms. Morrison $50,000 because she recognized something you seem to have missed, that your daughter's kindness is a gift, not a resource to be exploited, that her generosity deserved reciprocation, not exploitation." Mom started crying harder. Ashley reached for her hand but was also tearing up. Tyler's jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't speak. "I share this," Judge Hartley continued, "because I want you to understand the full context of your actions. While Ms. Morrison visited strangers in the hospital, you planned to steal her inheritance. While she arranged her own brain surgery care, you posted beach photos. While she recovered, you tried to have her declared incompetent." He straightened, judicial composure returning. "The settlement terms are more than fair. They represent a fraction of what a jury might award in civil court, and they spare you criminal prosecution. I strongly advise you to accept." A recess was called. I stepped into the hallway with Catherine and Grace, my legs shaky with emotional exhaustion. Through the glass door, I could see my family huddled with their lawyer voices raised in distress. "He's not supposed to be that involved," Catherine murmured, though she seemed pleased. "But he's not wrong about anything he said." Grace squeezed my shoulder. "How are you holding up?" "I'm tired," I admitted. "Just tired." When we reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted. My family looked defeated, smaller somehow. Jonathan Fitzgerald cleared his throat. "My clients agree to the settlement terms with one modification. They need time to liquidate assets. We propose a payment schedule over 18 months. Catherine started to object, but I touched her arm. "That's fine, as long as the no-contact order is immediate." "It is," Fitzgerald confirmed. "Complete cessation of all contact, direct or indirect, effective upon signing." The paperwork was prepared with efficient speed. As my family signed each signature, another bar in the cage that would keep them from me, Mom looked up. "Caitlin, Mrs. Morrison? Judge Hartley interrupted. The no-contact order is already in effect. Please refrain from addressing your daughter. But Mom persisted, looking at me with swimming eyes. I'm sorry, we never thought... That's exactly right, I said quietly, finding my voice. You never thought about my surgery beyond how it inconvenienced your vacation. Never thought about my sacrifice beyond how it benefited you. Never thought about me at all, really, just what I could provide. Ashley made a wounded sound. Tyler's face flushed, but I wasn't finished. Eleanor Hartley died alone because family fought over money, but she found more love from a stranger with flowers than from the son she raised. That's what you taught me. That family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, and you chose Cabo. The signing continued in silence after that. When the last signature was complete, Judge Hartley reviewed the documents with satisfaction. The settlement is approved. The no-contact order is permanent unless both parties petition the court for modification. Any violation will result in immediate criminal prosecution. He looked at my family. You're free to go. They filed out slowly, Mom sobbing, Ashley supporting her, Tyler bringing up the rear. At the door, Tyler turned back, opened his mouth, then shut it. What was there to say? They'd made their choices. Now we all had to live with them. After they left, Judge Hartley asked me to remain. When the room was clear except for Catherine Grace and myself, his judicial mask dropped slightly. My mother would have been pleased with this outcome, he said simply. She believed in justice, but she also believed in freedom. You're free now, Ms. Morrison. Free to be more than what others take from you. Thank you, I said, meaning more than just his oversight of the settlement. No, Ms. Morrison, thank you for showing my mother kindness when her own son couldn't manage it, for being the daughter she wished she'd had. The bequest was the least she could do. He left then, robes billowing behind him. Catherine gathered the papers, a satisfied smile playing at her lips. Well, that was certainly more dramatic than most settlement conferences. Is it over? I asked. Legally, yes. The first payment is due in 30 days. The no-contact order is ironclad. If they violate it, they face immediate prosecution. She paused. Emotionally, that's a longer journey. Outside the courthouse, the reporters had moved on to other stories. No cameras waited, no microphones thrust forward. Just a quiet Monday in Chicago, gray sky promising rain, the world moving on as if 3 decades of family dysfunction hadn't just ended in a conference room. Grace drove me home in comfortable silence. The city passed by the windows, people heading to work, living their lives connected to families that might love or hurt them or both. I wondered how many of them were the givers emptying themselves for takers who'd never notice until the well ran dry. At my apartment, more flowers waited. The Sunday Patients had sent a group arrangement with a card, "To our flower girl, may your garden grow with people who water you back." I set Eleanor's nurse pin on my dresser next to the photo Patricia had taken of us. Eleanor and me 2 weeks before she died, both smiling over fresh daisies. Behind the photo, I tucked the settlement papers, $310,000 over 18 months. Not enough to buy back the years of sacrifice, but enough to build something new. My phone was blessedly silent. The no-contact order held both ways. I couldn't reach out even if weakened by memory or guilt. The bridge wasn't just burned. It was legally demolished, the river between us, impassable by court decree. I thought about Judge Hartley's words. Free to be more than what others take. Free to discover who Caitlin Morrison was when she wasn't defined by family need. The surgery had removed the tumors. The settlement had removed the takers. Now came the harder work of growing something healthy in all that empty space. Tomorrow I'd return to work, see patients on Sunday, live a life that was mine to shape. But tonight I sat with Eleanor's pin in my hand, thinking about mothers and daughters, blood and choice, and the strange ways the universe sometimes delivers justice. The rain finally came, washing Chicago clean. I watched it fall and felt something I hadn't experienced in 32 years, the weightless sensation of owing nothing to anyone but myself. 2 weeks into my new contact-free life, Catherine called with an urgent tone I'd never heard before. "Caitlin, you need to come to my office immediately. Don't discuss this with anyone." I found her pacing behind her desk, a manila folder thick with documents spread before her. Her usually composed face showed cracks of genuine shock. "Remember when I said your case was straightforward fraud? I was wrong. It's so much worse." She gestured to a chair. "You might want to sit down." The documents she showed me were from a private investigator she'd hired to ensure all assets were accounted for in the settlement. What he'd found had made her call me immediately. "Your father had 2 wills," she began. "The one your family probated after his death, and this one." She handed me a notarized document dated 6 months before Dad's heart attack. "He created a separate trust, just for you." I read through legalese that slowly resolved into meaning. $200,000 in investments, another $50,000 in bonds, all held in a trust with specific instructions for Caitlin Elizabeth Morrison, only to be revealed on her 35th birthday, or when she finally stops letting them drain her dry, whichever comes first. But it was the attached letter that broke me. Dad's handwriting, his engineer's precision in every line. "My dearest Caitlin, if you're reading this, it means one of 2 things happened. Either you've reached 35 or you've finally started protecting yourself from them. I'm hoping for the latter, though knowing your generous heart, I fear it might be the former. I watch you sacrifice everything for this family, and I am both proud and heartbroken. Proud of the woman you've become. Heartbroken that I raised 2 other children who see your kindness as weakness, who take your generosity as their due. Your mother knows about this trust. I told her when I created it made her promise to give you this letter when the time was right. If you're reading this through other means, then she broke that promise. I wish I could say I'm surprised. Ashley and Tyler got their inheritance early. The cars I bought, the college tuition, the bailouts and loans never repaid. Every time you covered for them, paid for them, saved them, you were giving them their inheritance twice over. So this is yours alone, hidden where they can't touch it, waiting for when you need it most. I failed you, my sweet girl. Failed to protect you from becoming the family sacrifice. Failed to teach Ashley and Tyler that love isn't measured in what you can take. Failed to stop your mother from enabling their selfishness. But you never failed us. Not once, even when we deserved it. The money is yours, but more importantly, the permission is yours. Permission to say no. Permission to choose yourself. Permission to walk away from anyone who sees your heart as a resource to be mined, rather than a gift to be treasured. I love you, Caitlin, more than words can say. Be free. Dad. I read it 3 times before the tears made it impossible to continue. All these years he'd seen it, known what was happening, tried to protect me in the only way he knew how, through hidden money and posthumous permission slips. "There's more," Catherine said gently. "The investigator tracked the trust's activity. Your mother has been receiving disbursements, signing your name, 20,000 over the past 2 years. She knew." My voice came out hollow. She knew about the trust, knew Dad wanted me to have it, and she took it anyway. "The forgery is clear. We have grounds for additional charges." Catherine's voice hardened. "This isn't just fraud anymore. This is systematic, premeditated theft by someone who looked you in the eye and lied every single day. I thought about Mom comforting me after Dad's death, holding me while I sobbed, accepting my insistence that she keep everything because family takes care of family. All while she had his letter. All while she was already planning to steal what he'd hidden for me. "What do you want to do?" Catherine asked. I stared at Dad's letter, his words blurring through fresh tears. Be free. Such simple words. Such an impossible ask for someone who'd been trained since birth to put everyone else first. Add it to the settlement, I decided. Everything she took plus the trust funds, and Catherine. No more generous terms. They pay it all or I press charges. That's my girl. Catherine smiled fiercely. "I'll have amended demands ready by tomorrow." But I wasn't done. "I want something else in the settlement. They have to provide all family photos and videos from before Dad died, everything with him in it." "That's unusual, but I can make it happen. May I ask why?" "Because I want to remember him without them. I want photos where he's smiling at me, videos where he's proud of me, memories that aren't tainted by knowing they were already planning to rob me blind." That evening, I sat in my apartment with Dad's letter remembering how he'd always slip me extra cash when Mom wasn't looking, how he'd wink when Ashley complained about not getting something like, "We shared a secret about who really deserved more," how his final words to me had been, "Take care of yourself for once, sweetheart." I'd thought it was delirium from the medication. Now I knew it was one last attempt to save me from what he'd helped create but couldn't fix. My phone, silent for 2 weeks under the no contact order, suddenly buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Ms. Morrison, this is James Parker from First National Bank. I was your father's account manager. I've been trying to reach you for 2 years about some irregularities in trust disbursements, but your mother said you were traveling extensively for work." Another lie, another betrayal. I gave him Catherine's information and hung up, feeling the full weight of how deep the deception went. Every family gathering where Mom had patted my hand and thanked me for my help, every birthday where she'd wished me success and happiness, all while stealing what Dad had tried to give me. I picked up the photo of Dad from my bookshelf. Him at my college graduation burst with pride, one arm around me, while Ashley sulked in the background and Tyler played on his phone. Even then, the dynamics were clear. I just hadn't wanted to see them. "You tried to warn me," I whispered to the photo. "Tried to protect me even after death. I'm sorry it took brain surgery and a stranger's kindness to finally hear you." Grace arrived with Chinese food, took one look at my face, and simply held me while I sobbed out the story. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You know what this means, right?" she finally said. "Your dad loved you enough to try to save you from beyond the grave. That's how much you mattered to him. Not as the family ATM, as his daughter who deserved protection. I wish he'd just told me while he was alive." "Maybe he tried. Maybe you weren't ready to hear it." She squeezed my hand. "The important thing is you're hearing it now, and you're doing what he wanted, choosing yourself." That night I dreamed of Dad again, not the fever dream surgical vision, but a real memory. The day he'd taught me to drive patient while I ground the gears and confused the pedals. "The hardest part," he'd said, "isn't learning to go. It's learning when to stop, when to brake, when to refuse to move forward because the path isn't safe." I woke understanding. All those years of giving, of sacrificing, of driving full speed toward family needs. I'd never learned to brake. Dad had tried to teach me hiding money like emergency brake lines, hoping someday I'd need them, hoping someday I'd stop. The settlement meeting was in 3 days. This time, there would be no generous terms, no payment plans, no mercy for the woman who'd stolen from her dead husband's trust while accepting her daughter's sacrifices. I picked up Eleanor's nurse pin, feeling its weight. 2 parents now, one biological one chosen, who'd seen my worth and tried to protect it. 2 people who'd loved me enough to plan for my freedom even when I couldn't plan it for myself. The tumors were gone. The truth was revealed. And somewhere I hoped Dad was finally at peace, knowing his hidden gift had been found, knowing his daughter was finally impossibly heartbreakingly free. Be free. I was trying, Dad. I was finally trying. The amended settlement meeting was scheduled for a Thursday, exactly 1 month after my surgery. Dr. Matthews had cleared me completely. The scars were healing, my vision was perfect, and he'd noted with professional satisfaction that I seemed transformed since the operation. "It's not uncommon," he'd said at my final follow-up. "Removing pressure on the brain can cause profound changes. Some patients report feeling like entirely different people." Different how, I'd asked. Clearer, more decisive, less tolerant of situations they'd previously accepted. He'd smiled. The brain is remarkable. Sometimes physical healing enables emotional healing too. Now preparing for what would likely be my last interaction with my birth family, I understood what he meant. The woman looking back at me in the mirror bore little resemblance to the one who'd texted the family chat about surgery just 5 weeks ago. The surgical scar was hidden beneath carefully styled hair, but the real changes were in my eyes, clear, determined, no longer clouded by the need to please people who'd never be pleased enough. Catherine called with a warning. They've hired a new lawyer, Benjamin Cross. He's aggressive, specializes in contesting wills and family disputes. This won't be as straightforward as last time. Let them fight, I said, surprising myself with my calm. They're fighting over money they stole. Money Dad hid specifically because he knew they would steal it. I'm done making this easy for them. The courthouse felt different this time. I walked in alone. I'd asked Grace to stay at work, needing to face this final confrontation on my own terms. The conference room was packed my family, their new lawyer, Catherine, a court reporter, and Judge Patricia Chen, again presiding. Benjamin Cross looked like what he was, a shark in a $3,000 suit. He started immediately. Your Honor, we contest these amended demands. The alleged trust documents could be forgeries. My clients have no knowledge of any secondary will. Catherine responded by producing the originals, complete with notarization bank records and Dad's fingerprints. Interesting that they have no knowledge considering Mrs. Morrison has been accessing the trust for 2 years. Those transactions were authorized by Cross began. By forgery, Catherine interrupted. She displayed the signature comparisons. Mrs. Morrison signed her daughter's name, badly. The forensic analyst's report is quite clear. Mom's face crumbled. Ashley gripped her hand. Tyler stared at me with something like betrayal, as if I were the one who'd committed crimes. But the real shock came when Catherine produced the bank manager's affidavit. Mr. Parker attempted to contact Ms. Morrison about suspicious activity. Mrs. Morrison told him her daughter was traveling for work and authorized all transactions. She provided a phone number that traces to a burner phone purchased by Tyler Morrison. The room erupted. Cross objected. Mom sobbed. Ashley accused us of fabrication. Through it all, I sat silent, watching the family I'd sacrificed everything for reveal their true selves. Judge Chen called for order. Mr. Cross, do your clients deny accessing trust funds designated for Caitlin Morrison? A whispered conference. Cross's expression darkened as he realized what his clients had withheld from him. Finally, my clients assert they believe the funds were family assets. Despite the trust document specifically naming Caitlin Morrison as sole beneficiary, Judge Chen's tone could have frozen water. Despite forging her signature to access them, Your Honor, Ashley burst out. She never helped with Dad's care. We were the ones who... Stop. I spoke for the first time and everyone turned. Just stop. I have receipts for every medical bill I paid, records of every appointment I drove him to. The nursing home confirmed I was his only regular visitor the last 6 months. You showed up twice, Ashley. Both times to ask him for money. I'm not finished. I stood Dad's letter in my hand. Dad saw who you really were. All of you. That's why he hid this money. That's why he wrote this letter. Should I read it aloud? Should I let everyone hear what he really thought about his family? Mom's sob was answer enough. I sat back down but kept the letter visible, a threat and a shield combined. Catherine resumed with clinical efficiency. The trust funds totaled $250,000. The stolen disbursements were $20,000. Additional damages for fraud brought the total to $300,000 beyond the original settlement. $600,000, Tyler exploded. That's insane. We don't have that kind of money. Perhaps you should have considered that before stealing it, Judge Chen observed. Cross tried more legal maneuvering, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged signatures. The burner phone traced to Tyler, Mom's lies to the bank manager. and overshadowing it all, Dad's clear intentions, documented in legally binding trusts. "I need to confer with my clients," Cross said, finally, defeat creeping into his voice. During the break, I stepped into the hallway for air. The transformation Dr. Matthews had described felt complete. The old Caitlin would have been racked with guilt watching her mother cry, would have offered payment plans, forgiveness, another chance. But that woman had been carved away, along with the tumors. What remained was someone who could see clearly that tears were just another manipulation, that family was just a word when not backed by love. When we reconvened, Cross's expression told the story. My clients agree to the amended settlement terms. However, they need to sell the family home to meet the obligations. The family home, where I'd grown up, where Dad had taught me to cook in the outdated kitchen, where I'd nursed Mom through cancer in the guest room, where Ashley had planned her 3 weddings and Tyler had hidden from his creditors. "That's acceptable," I said before Catherine could respond. "But I want the photos and videos first, everything with Dad, before they pack a single box." "You're making us homeless," Mom wailed. "No," I said calmly. "Your theft made you homeless, your greed, your lies. I'm just collecting what was always mine." The papers were signed with shaking hands. The no-contact order remained in place, permanent, unbreakable, illegal wall between us. As they prepared to leave, Ashley turned at the door. "I hope you're happy," she spat. "I hope the money keeps you warm at night." "It won't," I admitted, "but it'll pay for the therapy to deal with 32 years of manipulation. It'll fund the life Dad wanted me to have. And unlike your love, it's actually real." They left then, my family reduced to strangers with shared DNA and nothing else. Judge Chen dismissed us with a warning about the criminal charges that still hung over their heads, dependent on my cooperation with prosecutors. Outside Chicago had shifted from spring to early summer while I'd been recovering. The air smelled of growing things, of possibility of life beyond the courthouse steps. Catherine walked me to my car, her satisfaction evident. "You did well in there. No guilt, no backing down. I'm proud of you." "I feel empty," I admitted. Not sad, not happy, just empty. "That's normal. You've excised a 32-year tumor. The space it left needs time to fill with something healthier." She paused. "What will you do now?" I thought about it. $600,000 would be life-changing money. Add Eleanor's bequest, and I had choices I'd never imagined. I don't know. Travel, maybe. See the Grand Canyon, finally. Take a sabbatical. Figure out who I am when I'm not defined by what others need. Good, you've earned that discovery. That night, I sat in my apartment surrounded by boxes the family had delivered, photos and videos as required by the settlement. I found what I was looking for quickly, a video from my 16th birthday. Dad had filmed it, his voice warm behind the camera as he sang to me. In the background, Ashley complained about the cake flavor and Tyler played video games, but Dad kept the focus on me. "Make a wish, sweetheart," he'd said. "Wish for whatever you want most." I'd wished for my family to be happy, 16 years old and already wishing for others instead of myself. But Dad had seen, it must have known even then, what I was becoming. The family sacrifice, the one who gave until empty. I wish for freedom. I whispered to the screen, to Dad's memory, to the girl I'd been. I wished to be more than what others take from me. The settlement money would come in stages as they sold assets. The house would go first, Mom already packing for a small apartment in a cheaper suburb. Ashley and Tyler would have to figure out their own finances without the Bank of Caitlin to cover shortfalls. My phone, quiet for weeks, suddenly lit with notifications. The Sunday patients had seen news of the settlement were celebrating my victory. Patricia texted that the entire surgical ward was proud. Carl, the driver, left a voicemail saying his daughter wanted to meet me to thank me for showing her that kindness and strength could coexist. These people, my chosen family, my real support system, filled the empty spaces with warmth. Where my birth family had left wounds, strangers become friends, offered healing. Where DNA had failed, human connection succeeded. Dr. Matthews had been right. The surgery had transformed me, but not in the way he'd meant. It hadn't just removed tumors or restored vision. It had given me the clarity to see that love shouldn't hurt, that family shouldn't drain that sacrifice without reciprocation wasn't noble, but toxic. I pulled out Eleanor's nurse pin, holding it up to catch the light. 2 women, Eleanor and me, who'd learned too late what family really meant. But late was better than never. At 32, I was finally free to become who Dad had glimpsed, who Eleanor had recognized, who I'd always been beneath the layers of obligation and guilt. The transformation was complete. The old Caitlin, eternally giving, forever sacrificing, was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone who could say no, someone who could choose herself, someone who understood that the greatest gift she could give was valuing her own worth. Tomorrow I'd start planning that Grand Canyon trip, but tonight I sat with Dad's videos, his laughter filling my empty apartment, his love the only inheritance that truly mattered. Be free, he'd written. Finally, impossibly miraculously, I was. 3 months had passed since the settlement. 3 months of blessed silence, of healing, of discovering who Caitlin Morrison was when not defined by family crisis. I'd taken that Grand Canyon trip standing at the south rim as sunrise painted the canyon in shades of gold and pink, finally understanding what I'd missed while organizing everyone else's life. I'd returned to work with new boundaries, taken up pottery classes, deepened friendships with people who gave as much as they received. The first settlement payment had come through, proceeds from the house sale. I'd driven past the old neighborhood once, seeing the sold sign in the yard where I'd learned to ride a bike. No nostalgia, came only relief. That chapter was closed. Then, on a mundane Tuesday afternoon, everything exploded. I was reviewing quarterly reports when Grace burst into my office, face flushed with urgency. Building security just called. Your family's in the lobby, all of them. They're making a scene. That's impossible. The no-contact order. They say it's an emergency, life or death. Security's holding them, but I felt the familiar pull the old conditioning trying to activate. Emergency, life or death. The words designed to bypass logic and trigger my caretaking instincts. But the woman who'd stood at the Grand Canyon sunrise was not the woman who'd rushed to every manufactured crisis. Call Catherine, I said calmly. And the police, the order is clear. Caitlin, Grace hesitated. Your mom collapsed. The security footage shows her fainting. It looks real. Of course it did. Mom had always been theatrical, but fainting on command might be beyond even her. Still, I remained seated, fingers steady on my keyboard. Then they should call 911. I'm not a doctor. They're saying she's been sick, that they need to tell you something important before... Grace stopped herself. Sorry, I know you're right. I'll call Catherine. While she made the calls, I pulled up the security feed on my computer. There they were in the lobby. Mom sitting on a bench, pale and shaking. Ashley crouched beside her mascara running. Tyler pacing like a caged animal. They looked terrible. Thin, desperate nothing like the tanned vacationers who'd laughed at my surgery needs. My desk phone rang. Building security. Ms. Morrison, your mother is asking for water. Should we... Give her water. Call paramedics if needed, but they cannot come up. The legal order stands. I ended the call and tried to refocus on work, but the numbers swam. 3 months of peace, and they'd found a way to shatter it. Emergency. Life or death. The words echoed, trying to resurrect the old Caitlin, who'd have been in the elevator already. Catherine arrived within 20 minutes, looking grimly satisfied. I've already contacted the prosecutor. They're in clear violation. This could mean jail time. They said it's life or death. They've said that before, haven't they? When Tyler needed bail, when Ashley needed fertility treatments, when your mother needed... This feels different. I hated admitting it, but something in their desperation seemed genuine. They look guilty, caught facing consequences. Catherine's voice softened slightly. Caitlin, manipulation doesn't stop just because the manipulators are suffering. Sometimes it intensifies. The police arrived ready to arrest them for violation of the order. I watched on the security monitor as officers approached. Mom stood shakily, Ashley supporting her. Tyler stepped forward and I could read his lips. Please, just 5 minutes. She's dying. Dying. The word hit like a physical blow. I found myself standing, moving toward the door before Catherine caught my arm. Don't. Whatever they need to say, they can say through lawyers. What if she really is? Then they should have thought of that before stealing from you, before mocking your brain surgery, before choosing Cabo. Catherine's grip was firm. This is what they do, Caitlin. They create emergencies to break down your boundaries. But I was already reaching for my phone calling building security. Don't arrest them yet. Bring them to conference room C. I'll meet them there with my attorney. Catherine sighed but didn't argue further. 5 minutes, that's all, and I'm staying. The conference room felt arctic when we entered. I chose a seat at the far end of the table, Catherine beside me like a legal guardian angel. When my family was escorted in, I barely recognized them. Mom had lost at least 20 pounds, her skin gray beneath badly applied makeup. Ashley's designer clothes hung loose, her usually perfect hair, limp and neglected. Tyler looked worst of all, gaunt, hollow-eyed, his hands shaking slightly. 5 minutes, I said before anyone could speak. Starting now. Mom tried to stand but swayed Ashley, catching her. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I have cancer, stage 4 pancreatic. The doctors say 3 months, maybe 6 with treatment. The words hung in the air like poison gas. I waited for the punchline, the manipulation, the ask for money. But Mom just sat there, tears sliding down her sunken cheeks. The settlement money, Tyler said quickly. We used it all for her treatment, the house sale, everything. But insurance won't cover the experimental therapy. We need... Stop. I held up a hand. You're here to ask for money. To ask for forgiveness. Ashley interrupted, shooting Tyler a glare. Mom wants... She needs... I need to make things right, Mom finished. Before it's too late. I studied her, this woman who'd raised me and betrayed me in equal measure. She did look sick, desperately sick. But then she'd looked devastated in court too, right before signing documents that revealed years of theft. You have 3 minutes left, I said. Mom fumbled in her purse, pulling out an envelope. I wrote this when I was diagnosed, before we came here. She slid it across the table. I'm not asking you to read it now, or ever. I just needed you to have it. We sold everything, Tyler added desperately. Our cars, Ashley's jewelry, my boat. Everything's gone to treatment, but it's not enough. We're not asking for money, Ashley said again, but her eyes betrayed her. They were absolutely asking for money. They just knew better than to say it outright. 2 minutes. I know what we did was wrong, Mom said. The money, the lies, choosing vacation over your surgery. I know apologies mean nothing now. But Caitlin, you're still my daughter, and I'm still dying. Can't that mean something? It means you have 90 seconds left. Catherine touched my arm in warning, but I couldn't stop myself. The rage that had been simmering for 3 months finally boiled over. You stole from me while I was having brain surgery. You accessed Dad's hidden trust while accepting my sacrifices. You plotted to cut me out of inheritance while I paid your bills. And now you want forgiveness. Now family matters. 60 seconds. I have tumor markers, Mom blurted. Genetic, you need to get tested. Ashley and Tyler already did. You're at risk. Another blow perfectly aimed. Even dying, she knew exactly which buttons to push. Your health. Your future. Things I'd have to act on regardless of how I felt about her. 30 seconds. Please, Ashley sobbed. She's our mother, your mother. Don't let her die thinking you hate her. I don't hate her, I said quietly. I nothing her, all of you. You killed my love through 1,000 cuts of exploitation and betrayal. What's left isn't hate, it's absence. Time's up, Catherine stood. Officers, please escort them out." As the police led them away, Mom turned back one last time. "The letter," she said. "Please, just read the letter." Then they were gone, leaving only the envelope on the table and the ghost of medical threats in the air. I stared at the letter, my name written in Mom's shaky handwriting, the same hands that had forged my signature on theft documents. "Don't," Catherine advised. "Whatever's in there, it's designed to manipulate." But I was already opening it, needing to know what final weapon she'd crafted. Inside 2 pages of handwritten confession and something else, a photograph I'd never seen. Dad and me at what looked like a bank, both smiling, holding documents. The letter read, "Caitlin, this photo was taken the day your father created your trust. He was so proud, so determined to protect you from us. She gives too much," he told the banker. "Someone needs to make sure she keeps something for herself. I was supposed to give you this photo with the trust documents. Instead, I hid it all and stole from you. I told myself it was for the family, that you'd understand, that you'd always bail us out anyway. I turned your generosity into an expectation and your love into an obligation. I'm dying now, and all that money bought me nothing. The treatments don't work. The house is gone. Your siblings look at me with the same disappointment I used to see in your father's eyes. I raised them to be takers, and now there's nothing left to take. You asked what kind of mother laughs at her daughter's brain surgery to go to Cabo, the kind who was jealous. Jealous that even strangers could see your worth when your own family couldn't. Jealous that you had the strength to be kind when I only knew how to be selfish. Jealous that your father loved you best because you deserved it. I don't ask for forgiveness. I ask only that you get tested for the genetic markers, that you continue being the woman we didn't deserve, that you remember your father's love was real, even if mine was conditional. Your mother in biology, only Linda Morrison. I set the letter down with steady hands. Around me, the conference room felt too small, too bright, too full of ghosts. Catherine waited quietly, letting me process. "Well," I said finally, "she's dying." "Yes." "She wants forgiveness." "Yes." "She's not going to get it." Catherine's smile was small but approving. "Good. What about the genetic testing?" "I'll do it. Through my own doctors. No contact needed." I stood, leaving the letter on the table. "Can you have someone burn this? No, wait. Keep it for the files. Evidence of continued manipulation." She admitted to the theft. This letter could help with prosecution. "She's dying, Catherine. Prison seems redundant." I gathered my things, suddenly exhausted. "Make sure the no-contact order is reinforced. If they violate it again, arrest them. Mother or not, cancer or not. I'm done." We left the conference room together, passing through security where officers were finishing paperwork. I didn't look toward the exit where my family had been escorted out. Didn't wonder if they were still in the parking lot hoping for another chance. Didn't care. That night, I called Dr. Matthews about genetic testing, made an appointment with an oncologist, took care of my health without needing my mother's death to motivate me. The old Caitlin would have been at the hospital already holding Mom's hand, paying for treatments, sacrificing herself on the altar of biological duty. But the old Caitlin had been removed along with the tumors. What remained was someone who could feel sadness without obligation, who could acknowledge shared DNA without accepting shared dysfunction. Mom would die with or without my forgiveness. The only difference was that I wouldn't die alongside her, pouring myself out for someone who'd only ever known how to take. I picked up the photo from the letter. Dad and me at the bank creating protection I wouldn't need for 15 more years. His smile was proud but sad, like he could see the future battles I'd have to fight. But he'd given me armor, even if it had taken brain surgery and a stranger's kindness to finally put it on. "I kept something for myself, Dad," I whispered to the photo. "I kept me." Outside my apartment, Chicago lived its evening life. People heading home to families that might love or hurt them, might support or drain them. But I was here alone but not lonely, abandoned but not empty. The space my family had occupied was filling with chosen connections, real love, actual support. Mom had 3 months, maybe 6. I had a lifetime freed from the genetic obligation to pour myself into people who'd proven themselves bottomless. She'd die wondering if I'd read her letter if her confession had earned absolution. Let her wonder. Some prices were too high to pay even for dying mothers who'd helped kill their daughters slowly for 32 years. The confrontation was final. The door was closed. And tomorrow I'd wake up still free, still choosing myself, still becoming the woman my father had glimpsed and protected and loved enough to save. 1 year later, I stood on my new apartment's balcony in Seattle, watching the sun paint Mount Rainier in shades of rose and gold. The Pacific Northwest morning was crisp coffee steam curling up from my mug as I breathed in air that tasted of possibilities and rain. The genetic tests had come back clear. No tumor markers, no pancreatic cancer indicators, just a clean bill of health and a future stretched out before me unmarked by my mother's medical legacy. Dr. Matthews had been thrilled at my 1-year follow-up showing me scans that revealed perfect healing, no trace of the tumors that had once clouded my vision. "Your recovery is remarkable," he'd said, "though I suspect the physical healing was only part of your transformation." He wasn't wrong. The woman who'd moved to Seattle 6 months ago bore little resemblance to the one who'd texted a family group chat about surgery, hoping for a simple ride home. That woman had been hollow, poured out, defined by what she could give. This woman was full, vibrant, defined by what she chose to keep. The VP position at the tech startup had come through an old college connection who'd seen news of my legal battle. "Anyone who can manage that kind of family dysfunction can certainly handle our board of directors," she'd joked during the interview, but it was more than that. My reputation for turning around failing projects built during years of fixing family crises translated perfectly to the fast-paced startup world. I fixed problems now because I was skilled, not because I was obligated. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. "Coffee before your flight, I have news. We met at our usual spot, a little cafe near Pike Place Market that had become my Seattle sanctuary. Grace had been visiting monthly, our friendship deepening beyond its office origins. Today she was practically glowing. "I got the promotion," she announced before I even sat down. "Senior director, and it's partially thanks to you." Me. "Watching you stand up to your family, set boundaries, choose yourself." It inspired me. I finally stopped accepting lateral moves and demanded what I deserved. Turns out, they deserved it too. We toasted with overpriced lattes, and I felt the now familiar warmth of chosen family celebrating each other's victories. No jealousy, no scorekeeping, no hidden resentment. Just joy, shared and multiplied. "So still planning the big return?" Grace asked. "Just for the weekend. Patricia's retiring and the Sunday patients are throwing her a party. I couldn't miss it." The flight to Chicago that afternoon was smooth, giving me time to reflect on the year's journey. The settlement payments had come through on schedule. No contact needed, just automatic transfers that funded my new life. Mom had died 8 months ago. I'd learned through Eleanor Hartley's son, who'd sent a kind note mentioning he'd seen the obituary. I'd felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not grief, not relief. Just the neutral acknowledgement of a biological fact. Ashley and Tyler had honored the no-contact order, though I occasionally heard updates through the legal grapevine. Ashley was working retail, her husband having divorced her during the financial chaos. Tyler had moved to Florida, supposedly in recovery, supposedly rebuilding. I wished them well in the abstract way you might wish strangers well. No more, no less. Chicago welcomed me with familiar skyline and unfamiliar peace. My hotel was downtown close to Northwestern Memorial, where this journey had begun. That evening, I visited Ward 7B, arms full of flowers for the patients who'd become friends. "Our flower girl, Mrs. Chen," exclaimed, though she was in her 80s, and I hardly qualified as a girl anymore. "Patricia said you were coming. How's Seattle?" I spent hours catching up, distributing flowers, reading to new patients who looked lost and alone. It felt like coming full circle, except now I gave from abundance rather than emptiness. I had boundaries now. Visiting hours, I stuck to energy. I preserved a hotel room waiting rather than family demands. Patricia's retirement party was the next evening, held in the hospital's community room. She cried when she saw me, enveloping me in a hug that smelled of antiseptic and compassion. "I think about you all the time," she said. "My success story. The woman who survived brain surgery and family betrayal and came out stronger." "I had help," I reminded her. "A nurse who wouldn't let me wake up alone. That mattered more than you know." The room was full of people whose lives Patricia had touched. Patients, colleagues, families she'd comforted through the worst days of their lives. As she gave her retirement speech, she mentioned the importance of chosen family, of finding your people in unexpected places. "We don't get to pick our blood," she said, looking directly at me, "but we do get to pick who we claim, who we show up for, who we let matter." After the party, I found myself walking past my old apartment building. Another family lived there now, their windows glowing with warm light. I felt no pull to the past, no nostalgia for the life I'd lived within those walls. That woman, eternally giving, forever depleting, was as removed as the tumors that had threatened her sight. A text arrived as I stood there, an unknown number that made my chest tighten until I read the content. "Ms. Morrison, this is William Hartley. I'm hosting a memorial tea for my mother tomorrow at 2 p.m. She would have loved knowing you're in town. You'd be most welcome if you're able to attend. Eleanor." Even now, she was creating connections, building bridges between people who understood that family was about choice, not chance. I texted back my acceptance, then returned to my hotel to rest before my evening flight to Viet Tree, my planned detour before heading back to Seattle. The memorial tea was held at the Hartley estate, a gracious home full of legal books and Eleanor's garden photos. William greeted me warmly, introducing me to cousins and colleagues who'd all heard about Eleanor's flower girl. We shared stories of her fierce spirit, her late-life transformation, her insistence that kindness mattered more than blood. "She talked about you constantly those last weeks," William said as we stood by her portrait. "Said you showed her what she'd missed by focusing on family obligation over human connection. You helped us reconcile in a way. Helped her see I was worth knowing as a person, not just a disappointing son." "She helped me too," I said. "Helped me see I was worth more than what I could provide. Worth keeping, not just giving away." As the tea wound down, William handed me a small package. "She left this for you. Instructions were to give it when you seem truly free. I believe that time is now." Inside was Eleanor's nursing pin, the original one, not the replica Patricia had given me, and a note. "Dear Flower Girl, if you're reading this, it means you've done what I couldn't do until my 90s. Chosen yourself, worn your worth like armor, found family in unexpected places. This pin belonged to my grandmother, a nurse who understood that healing isn't just physical. It's emotional, spiritual, relational. You heal people not by depleting yourself, but by showing them wholeness is possible. Be whole, dear one. Be free. Be the woman who brings flowers because she wants to, not because she must. That's the difference between love and obligation. One fills you up, the other empties you out. All my love, Eleanor." I flew to Viet Tree. That evening, Eleanor's pin close to my heart. The humid air was a shock after Seattle's crispness, but there was something soothing about being somewhere entirely my own, unpolluted by family history or obligation. The next morning, I visited Hung King Temple, climbing the stone steps as incense wafted through ancient trees. At the top, I lit 3 sticks of incense, one for Dad, who'd tried to protect me, one for Eleanor, who'd shown me my worth, and one for the old Caitlin, who'd given everything so this new version could finally receive. I thought about family as I watched the smoke rise, how my birth family had taught me what not to accept, how my chosen family had shown me what to seek, how solitude had revealed what to keep. The tumor surgery had restored my vision, but the family surgery had restored my life. My phone buzzed with a photo from Grace, her new office complete with windows and a view. Patricia texted about a patient who'd asked after the flower lady. Carl, the driver, sent his daughter's graduation announcement. Real connections, freely chosen, mutually supportive. As I descended the temple steps, a notification appeared from my Seattle life. The startup was opening a Tokyo office. Would I consider leading it? New challenges, new cities, new possibilities, all available because I'd finally stopped pouring myself into broken vessels. Yes. I whispered not to the job offer yet, but to life itself, to choices made from abundance rather than obligation, to family formed by selection rather than genetics, to the woman I'd become by cutting away everything that no longer belonged. That evening, back in my hotel, I video called my Sunday patients. Mrs. Chen showed me her new watercolor paintings. Mr. Rodriguez played his guitar. Patricia popped in to wave hello. My chosen family scattered but connected, held together by genuine care rather than guilty bonds. I thought about Mom, gone now beyond my forgiveness or condemnation. About Ashley and Tyler building new lives without the bank of Caitlin to cushion their falls. I wished them well, these strangers who shared my DNA. Wished them the growth that comes from consequences, the strength that comes from struggle, the clarity that comes from cutting away what poisons you. But I didn't miss them, didn't mourn the family we'd never been. That grief had been processed and released, scattered like incense smoke into the sky. What remained was gratitude for the lessons they'd taught through their failures, for the strength I'd found in their absence, for the family I'd discovered by losing the one I'd been born to. Tomorrow I'd fly back to Seattle, consider the Tokyo offer, send flowers to Patricia, visit new patients on Sunday, live a life bounded by choice rather than compulsion, filled with people who matched my giving, rich with connections that nourished rather than drained. The tumors were gone, all of them. The physical ones Dr. Matthews had removed, the emotional ones I'd excised through legal documents and no-contact orders. What remained was clear vision, clean boundaries, chosen family. What remained was me, whole and free, exactly as Dad had wished, exactly as Eleanor had seen, exactly as I'd always been beneath the layers of obligation. My phone lit up with the family group chat notification, except this one was different. Seattle Chosen Family. Grace had named it. 7 members and growing people who showed up without being begged, who gave without keeping score, who loved without conditions. Movie night when you're back, someone suggested. Caitlin's picking, Grace insisted. She introduced us to that weird art film last time that made us all cry. I smiled, typing back, deal, but someone else brings tissues. The responses came quick. Laughing emojis, hearts, offers to bring snacks and wine and themselves. My family, my real family, the one I'd found by losing the one that had been slowly killing me. To those struggling with family who take without giving, who drain without filling, who expect endless sacrifice while offering nothing in return, there's another way. It requires tremendous courage, maybe even brain surgery levels of pain, but on the other side is freedom. The freedom to choose your family. The freedom to say no. The freedom to keep something for yourself. The freedom to be. Are you in a family situation where you're always giving but never receiving? Have you ever had to choose between your well-being and family obligations? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength, setting boundaries, and choosing yourself. Share this with someone who might need to hear that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up when you're recovering from surgery, who brings flowers to your celebration, who sees your worth beyond what you can provide. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember, you deserve a family who pours into you as much as you pour into them. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not what you give. You deserve to choose yourself. Until next time, be free.